I would like to call the City of Bowie regular City Council meeting of Tuesday, January 21st to order. If you would, all who are able to, would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and good evening to everyone, and I hope you are able to handle this bitter cold we've been feeling of late. At this time, I would like to check with our city clerk to make sure that we have a quorum.
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum this evening. In council chambers, we have Councilmember Estef, Councilmember Rogers, Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley, Councilmember Brady, Councilmember Truesdale, and then via Teams Virtual, we have Mayor Adams.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam City Clerk. From the agenda, I'd like to say to council, I'd open the floor for any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments.
No hands here, sir.
Okay, so we will move on to, I don't see any here, but I guess we will open up for citizen participation. And Mayor
City Clerk, can I take those?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem, would you get those, please? And I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you, sir. All right. We'd like to welcome Ms. Shawn Graves to the podium here, please. Yes, ma'am. Just as a reminder for folks, this is an opportunity for the public. We do this every meeting, allow people to come up and speak. It's not an opportunity for a dialogue back and forth, but it is an opportunity to hear the concerns and interests of the citizens of the Bowie.
All right. Good evening, council members and mayor and citizens of Bowie. My name is Shawn Graves. I'm a resident of Bowie, Maryland. So tonight, my question and concern is relating to crime, the increase of crime, vandalism, and also we would like to know as a resident, as crime has increased, as we know, not just in Bowie, in other areas, what in particular are Bowie's strategies to help combat crime, minimize crime, punish the individuals, and also ability to attract other businesses to the area? I know we are losing businesses at increased mode here, but what are we doing to combat crime, which in turn would bring viable, attractive businesses other than crab shacks, chicken shacks in the area? So that's my comment there. So I think as tax-paying citizens, we do have the highest, I think, in this area, highest tax dollars that we're charged for property taxes and otherwise. What are some of the strategies going forward? What is the short-term, long-term plan? How can we get increased patrols in our neighborhoods? And what other proactive measures that you can lend to the community, as well as a way that we can be proactive to protect our investments going forward, and what, as council members and I guess law enforcement, what can we expect for 2025 going forward?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate your coming in. I know that you've got a lot of questions, and we would be delighted, I think, at the individual level to have a dialogue with you on that, and to provide an opportunity to get some additional thoughts from you. Okay. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us individually or collectively on an email. Our email addresses are on the government website, the city's website. Okay. So we do very much appreciate your coming in, and thank you for your questions.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Oh, Yes, and if you would, could you make sure that you got the contact information with the city clerk so that we can reach out to you as well?
Okay.
Thank you so very much. That's all we have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we would move on to citizen, at least presentations. I don't believe there are any presentations tonight. Is that correct, Madam Clerk, City Clerk?
Correct, Mayor, there are no presentations this evening.
I don't see anything for city boards and committees as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, we will now move on to council announcements.
Mr. Mayor, anything here?
Go right ahead.
Just
Yeah.
a quick thank you to all the staff that have worked so diligently over the last, all of the weeks of the new year, where we've seemed to have been really hammered with weather and the response to it. So first of all, thank you very much for all the attention on the roads and the extra effort that went in. I know I had some folks who had some extra concerns about some of the streets, recognizing that it was a pretty long snow event, that it really put a strain on our resources, but it was a job well done overall, so very much appreciate that. And certainly we recognize that for those that are watching at home and those here, we do not have city trash services today, nor will we have our yard waste recycled tomorrow because of the inclement weather. We just don't have the proper equipment, the personal equipment for our staff to stay warm and safe. So there will be no service today, or there was none today, and there won't be any tomorrow as well. So take note of that. But I do want to extend a thank you to all the staff who worked diligently over the last few weeks of this year. So thank you. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor, and I think that's it from the team here.
I see Councilwoman Mamadu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone, and especially good evening to District 4. I wanted to provide a brief update. There was a concern regarding the 301 South turning lane for South Lake. I received a couple of emails today, actually, that talked about two main routes that access Central Avenue and Crane Highway, and basically what a lot of constituents were amplifying were a lot of people are often traveling at high speeds, and on several occasions people would have to move over to the shoulder to avoid being rear-ended by drivers who are unfamiliar with making the turn. I did have an opportunity to speak with State Highway today. I spoke with Sabrina Mason, who is our community relations manager. Basically, the update that was provided by State Highway was that the traffic team is currently performing an evaluation and anticipates having the findings by spring 2025. And so if anybody does have any questions, feel free to follow up with myself or directly with Sabrina Mason, who is our community relations manager for State Highway. So hopefully we'll have some more insight here soon. And in the meantime, I want to make sure that everyone knows that it's being worked on. The second last announcement that I have is really just putting it out there for staff, and hopefully we'll have some updates soon on some of the speeding that we talked about speeding a couple months back, but then we did submit some roads. I know myself in particular, I submitted some roads on behalf of District 4, so I look forward to receiving an update on what's going on with that and what's going on with striping, and hopefully we won't have to wait until the budget cycle to hear what's going on there. So thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. I'd like to just echo what we've heard from our council members about being appreciative of those who go out into this very inclement weather and do what they do. And I also want to thank staff for looking out for the team and making sure that they don't subject themselves to anything that could really hurt them. So I thank you to all of those involved. And so now at this point, I'd like to move it on to the city manager's report. City manager?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and residents, especially those people on Kingsfield Drive. I have three things tonight. One, I'd like to introduce the Dr. Hung An. Stand up, please. This gentleman is the new deputy public works director.
Wonderful.
He was recruited and hired, and somewhere during the process, Jose decided to retire and go to Bolivia. So he is now the acting director of the Public Works Department. He's been here a month or so, and he's the movie was Courage Under Fire, I think. So he's gotten that with the snow and all that. So I want you to know who he is, and he's doing a great job. Thank you, Honor.
Excellent. Welcome.
The second issue is talk about the snow plowing issue we had. As some of you may know, when I was a department director, I was the public works director in Tacoma Park, and I've been a assistant city manager in College Park, and so I learned to really hate snow, especially when I was public works director, because it ruined a lot of my nights. Most of the cities in this region are staffed and funded to manage a 3 to 4 inch snowstorm. It happens kind of all at once, it's over, and then after that, all of these hard-working snow plowers and such get out there and strive to remove the snow within 12 hours of the last snowfall, just from a managerial operational perspective here. So the problem with what happened to us last 3 weeks ago is that it snowed for 2.5 days. So it snowed for 4 or 5 inches, took a couple of days off, a day off, then came and did it again. So as you all may know, we have a priority system for our snow plowing. We've designated certain streets that are number 1 priority, 2 and 3. Those 1 and 2 priority streets are the streets like High Bridge, that Mitchellville, that get you through the city of Bowie. And then we get to the 3 and 4 streets, and they, like Quarter Horse, mine goes nowhere. And so those are last on the priorities. We have, just for example, we had 27 plows, and we had 5 contractors that were added. And we have 191 miles of streets, just for the record, to deal with during that snowstorm. And our people worked for about 2.5 days straight, and it snowed the morning of the 5th, a good part of the 6th, and some of the 7th. But by the 7th, we had worked our way through the 1 and 2 streets, and we began the 3s. And if you left Bowie, you would know what I was talking about. Because once you got out of Bowie, you might as well have been on ice skates, because everybody else they were still trying to catch up. So we used 597 tons of salt to clean the streets, and Missy Marlette and Dr. On, oh, by the way, On's a civil engineer with a PhD too, just for the record. Dr. On and his people were working tirelessly for 2 days to get that done in the standards, the same as they did in College Park and Tacoma Park, and Bowie was the best in this area. But just understand that wasn't something we generally are funded for 4 inches and that's it. But they did great under those circumstances. And the other problem that occurred is that once it stopped snowing, generally speaking in this area, you get a temperature increase of 10 to 15 degrees and things melt. Well, it's been freezing for 3 weeks. So all the snow and everything that came down didn't melt, didn't go away, and that exacerbated the situation. Mr. Wolfley, the mayor pro tem, also mentioned the situation with the solid waste team. This morning in Quarter Horse, my drive, which I believe is the best place to live in Bowie, nothing personal to anybody, it was 10 degrees in my neighborhood, at my house. Add the wind chill to it, now we're hanging around 0. Our people's clothing and equipment is for cold weather, but that's extreme cold. So they would have been subject to frostbite, trench foot, and other events, and if we had forced them, it would have been, from a leader's perspective, our fault. Because fortunately, we have the situation where we pick up twice a week, so we can recover Thursday and Friday for what we missed today. All right, but we got to look out for the troops, and that's what we're doing this morning, and we'll be back at it when it warms up on Thursday and Friday. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, okay.
Working so hard. I was saying thank you to all of you that have been working so hard to get us through this. And it is appreciated. All right, we will now move on to the
Mr.
consent
Mayor,
agenda.
one moment,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. We have a couple of questions here. Mr. Brady?
No, I was going to amplify the last point that the city manager made. You also have to remember that the trash and refuse and recycling crews ride on the back of the trash vehicles in the neighborhood. So that is adding to the wind chill effect. That 5 to 10 to 15 miles an hour that the vehicle is driving, when they're hanging on the back, that adding to the coldness there. So it was a wise decision, and you're to be commended for it. Thank you.
Anybody else here? All good here, Mr. Mayor.
All right, hey, thank you. At this time, we will move to the consent agenda, and I will open the floor to any motions.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda. There's been a second here as well.
Second.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you confirm the vote?
It's
Yes,
unanimous.
Mayor, we do have a full 7-0 count for the vote.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on. We have no old business. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Correct.
And we will now move on to new business. And we will begin with the budget guidance for fiscal year 2026. And I will turn that over to the city. Mr. Lott or,
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
oh, Brian, I'm sorry, Byron.
That's
Go right ahead.
I'm good. Good evening, Mayor and Council and residents. My name is H. Byron Matthews. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Bowie. And tonight, we will, with Council, go over the budget guidance for FY '26. You know, a budget plan is a roadmap that can be reduced or increased to meet the current objectives of the governing body. And tonight, we want to start our budget guidance by listing some of the successes for 2024. We exceeded our fund balance policy, which is 25% of expenditures. The city's fund balance policy ended at 75%, and our unassigned fund balance was 29%. Our unassigned fund balance relates to available money to spend on future expenses. In FY '24, the general fund balance increased by $1.9 million. We maintained our AAA rating, and we've had a constant tax rate for the last 14 years. In addition, the city has provided robust core services to its residents. And lastly, the development of South Lake, Milford, and Mill Branch Crossing. Our next slide is a slide based on the personnel for the city of Bowie over the last 10 years. And as you can see, personnel growth has increased an average of 6 positions per year over the last 10 years. This is the biggest part of our budget, which represents almost 54% of the general fund budget. As you know, the city is in the position to deliver services, and how we deliver those services is through manpower. The rest of the city's budget is consumed by contractual services, commodities, other charges, capital outlay, debt service, and transfers to other funds. This is a 10-year graph of our personnel costs, as you can see. In 2023 and 24, they kind of represent staff who are retiring, new staff coming in at lower wages, and so forth. The next slide will give you a current trend of the general fund revenues and expenses and fund balance with the proposed tax hikes for 2026 through 2030. This information is, the source of this information is the adopted budget for 2025. The proposed tax hikes are 10 cents per $100 of assessed value in 2026, and an additional 5 cents increase in 2028. Council management responsibility, and this is what we're here for tonight, is to create a balanced budget. And that balanced budget can be created by matching revenues to our expenses. But it also can include a portion of the fund balance. And as you know, the city uses this fund balance to fund all of its capital projects that are not funded by GO bond sales. The city is a pay-as-you-go city. What that means is, to our residents, is that the city normally saves its funds in order to purchase the things that residents desire. So we get to the main purpose of this meeting, which are as follows. We're going to establish the framework for the FY26 budget. We're going to set budget priorities and parameters. We're going to emphasize the using of the CIP, Strategic Financing Plan. We want to use that as a tool to make sure that we are stretching out and using our finances, whether or not we use PAYGO or we use outside debt in order to finance our new projects. Consideration for long-term recurring operating costs when adding new capital projects. And in a nutshell, this means that we can create a new project, create a new building, but we also have to take in consideration the ongoing maintenance once we create that building or put it in service. Consideration of debt affordability. Can the city afford to incur more debt in order to purchase additional amenities? And we're going to reevaluate the property tax rate. A little bit on the budget framework. The first thing we want to make sure is that we are reaffirming our core services. And as I talk about core services, we're talking about police department, we're talking about trash pickup, we're talking about our parks and grounds and maintaining those facilities at a high standard. establish a property tax rate for FY '26. As we mentioned, we're going to examine the need for new capital projects. And we're also going to examine the funding strategy for those projects. And lastly, we'll set water and sewer rates for the upcoming year. The current threats to the city's budget are as follows: human capital. And what I mean by that is city employees. It is difficult to hire competent, well-educated employees because of the current market. People have options. So we are in that same market and competing with industry for the same caliber of people. The supply chain, as you know, the materials that are needed to maintain the buildings and grounds here at the City of Bowie, we are relying on suppliers to provide that to us. So there is a threat there. Inflation cost, as inflation rears at 3.2 to 3.9%, the cost of operations will continue to increase. And our last threat is the declining intergovernmental revenues. Those intergovernmental revenues that I'm referring to are income tax, emission and amusement taxes, motor vehicle taxes, and police protection. The budget schedule. Council, as you're aware, we have a requirement by the city charter to have the city manager deliver a budget to you on April 10th. This is our requirement, and this is how we get there. In January, we have a meeting with council, and we begin to lay the framework out of this budget guidance meeting. Also, staff begins to develop all of their goals and strategies. The city manager begins to meet with them in January and February. We've already started some of our budget meetings already. In March, the finance department will pull projections and prepare summaries for the city manager to evaluate to determine the outcome of the proposed budget. In April to May, City Council will hold budget work sessions. There will be 2 that will be held for public hearings. And normally, we kind of adopt this budget during mid-May. Fiscal policies. I just wanted to touch briefly over the fiscal policies for the city of Bowie. We have capital financing, debt management, fund balance, revenue and expenditures, and capital projects. Capital financing, the city will not use long-term borrowing to finance current operations or normal maintenance expenses. The city will maintain a high reliance on pay-as-you-go financing for its capital improvements. It would only issue debt for major projects included in the capital project program. Our debt management, we will repay any debt, any borrowings within the expected useful life of the improvement that the city is financing. The city will maintain its tax-supported bond debt level that won't exceed 8% of the assessed valuation of taxable property. The ratio of debt service to expenditures as a percentage of the general fund revenues should not exceed 10%. As we move into our fund balance, Council, you have established a fund balance policy for both the general fund and the water and sewer fund that should not fall below 25% of annual expenditures. The next graph here is a graph of the general fund balance over the last 10 years. So I wanted to be able to allow council to see what those numbers are. This ends in our 2023 year. We're currently being audited for our 24 year, and those numbers will be available shortly. The unassigned fund balance. The unassigned fund balance is available monies for additional operations, capital projects, our equipment acquisition fund. We use this in order to finance those operations. This is what I was referring to as pay-as-you-go. So as you can see, our fund balance is depleting, but it's depleting because we have purchased many good amenities over the years. We've also done a lot of rehabilitation to all of our amenities. We have a standard of maintaining our city amenities, and we spend money to make sure that that happens. This is just our, let me go back. Okay. The next graph is just a graph comparison so that you can see where the general fund balance aligns with the unassigned fund balance in dollar amounts. Just a different way of looking at the information I've already provided to you. Again, this talks about our fund balance policy. In FY24, general fund expenditures totaled $64 million. Our ending fund balance totaled just about $47 million, represents about a 73% fund balance. Revenues and expenditures. This is how the city has handled all revenue and expenditures coming into its coffers. The city will strive to adopt an annual general fund budget which recurring expenditures do not exceed recurring revenue. The city also provides a 5-year projection plan to council to give them the basis for developing a strategy for the ongoing maintenance of the city. Next is the annual basis. The city will set on an annual basis, the city will set rates for the water and sewer fund at a level which will provide for self-sufficiency. All revenue that is considered a one-time reoccurrence revenue, they are used to finance capital projects. Examples of one-time revenue include, but are not limited to, proceeds from the sale of surplus property, capital grants, and other infrequent non-recurring revenue. The use of one-time revenue for financing ongoing operations and expenditures is strongly discouraged. Our next section deals with our capital project hierarchy. Capital projects will be approved in the following order. City is required to meet all federal and state and county mandates placed upon it regarding the city's resources. Next, we have those items that are controlled by City Council, improvements to city amenities that promote health and wellness, restoration of aging infrastructure and buildings, and lastly, determining what new capital projects the city will embark upon. Capital project spending. This graph just kind of sets the priority where council has already led the way of telling us what is important. The mandate here is the EPA Chesapeake Bay, along with other obligations that we have with the special taxing districts, and that's cleaning the ponds, dredging the ponds as it occurs. Again, council has placed in motion a recapitalization plan for our water and sewer pipes. Council also established several years ago a facilities maintenance program. This program allows the city to put money aside for major improvements to its buildings, such as roofs, electrical systems, floors, and such. Next major projects on the horizon is the ice arena, basketball courts, and the continued development of the golf course. My last bullet here is just whether or not we need to set a moratorium on new projects and focus on the current resources that we have. Council should also consider whether or not current projects should be canceled. Cost-benefit analysis approach should be used to assist in making that decision. Our funding sources for all of our CIP projects, again at the top, is pay-as-you-go, general obligation bonds, federal and state grants, transfers from the general fund, funding from Maryland Park and Planning, and additional funding from Prince George's County. This graph shows the projected transfers from the general fund to our capital projects fund. As you can see, next year, the proposed is just about 8 million, following with another 4 million, another 3 million, another 7 million, and another 3 million in 2030. I bring this to council's attention because it is a large amount that we're transferring from the general fund, and it hits the fund balance. That's where that money is coming from. So the transfers from the general fund to capital improvement projects, in my professional opinion, are not sustainable. So set the groundwork for conversations around how we will continue to fund our capital projects. Next, council, I just wanted to share with you some trends of major revenue sources of the city. These are general fund revenues and expenditures over the last 10 years. As you can see from the graph, that over these years, the city's revenue just basically ekes out our expenses over the years. So we're staying in good stay there. We're not overspending our revenue source, but we're not increasing our fund balance as we did in the early 2000s. The next graph shows the assessed value of taxable property in the city of Bowie over the last 10 years. And this is a great picture, and it's a great story because it shows the increase in value of city properties. In FY24, we ended at $8.8 billion in taxable property. Next category are the major revenue sources that I talked about before. The major revenue source here is our property tax. That is the major funding source. The next is state shared revenues and all of our other revenues. In that state share revenue, the biggest block of revenue is the income tax revenue. It represents 20 or 77% of the state shared revenue. The property tax normally represents about 54% of our budget. Next is a graph to show you the income tax revenue that the city receives over the last 10 years. We ended in FY24 with an unusual amount. We were not expecting 13.8 million as the mark for FY24, but it's good information, it's good news. Highway user revenue. As we know that there's been some challenges with that over the last 15 years, and in some cases it's starting to pick up, even though FY23 we saw a downturn. FY24 revenue increased to 3.1 million. Revenue from our speed camera violations. As citizens and the visitors come through the city of Bowie and pass through our speed camera areas, we've noticed an uptick in tickets. This money that's generated from speed camera actually goes to fund the police department. It's kind of a direct source. The state also has criteria set up that prohibits municipalities from actually trying to make revenue here. If it exceeds more than 10% of their total revenue, then all of that money has to be returned to the state. So in our budget guidance, the city's financial position is strong, as demonstrated by the affirmation of the city's AAA bond rating from Moody's and Standards and Fitch. Our general fund balance and our unassigned fund balance percentages are fantastic at this point. We have just about 47 million in our fund balance, and we have 18 million of that unassigned. Mayor and Council, that concludes my presentation for the budget guidance. I'm available for any questions, if there are any. Thank you.
First and foremost, Mr. Matthews, I'd like to say thank you for all the hard work and to city staff and getting a lot of this data together and what you've done for the city, not only historically, but moving forward as well. I have a couple of questions, but I would like to give the courtesy to any of my council members who may have a question at this time. I can't see your hands.
Mr. Mayor, we do have Councilmember Rogers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Question, with the advent of AI and all that other stuff, is the city able to project based on current trends in revenue and spending, when we would reach a tipping point when expenses start to exceed revenue, which would give us an idea, and it may be in one of these charts, but is there a model available that shows us what that might look like, the trend, and when we definitely need to make some changes in how we manage our money?
Thank you for the question, Councilwoman. The city manager in our budget book, and I have to refer to this, he provides a summary, and I just want to find the page for you right quick, so for your reference. Roman numeral 16 in his message to council, and in addition, on page 12 and page 13. On these pages, the city basically lays out where the city is going to be at on an annual basis. We see that in this current projection, that tipping point is going to be in 2026. Now, realizing that our budgeted revenue and our budgeted expenditures use the fund balance in order to balance the budget. So our revenues are already short in comparison to our expenditures. The good thing about the whole process is, over the years, with the management and guidance from council and the city manager's office, we've been able to make sure that our actual expenditures over the last 10 years have come in shorter or less than our revenue. Thus, the annual increase in the fund balance. It's not by much. In FY24, it was 1.9 million. But this is because staff is really scrutinizing the expenditures. They are only purchasing things that they need to purchase. They are getting rid of any obsolete activity through their departments. So these techniques have helped the city over the years to maintain its position. And thus, we have not been required or not forced to increase our tax rate.
Let me chime in there, Byron. The FY26 number is a good number, but there, as Byron mentioned, there are two positive variables. One, you know, historically, and this is my 9th budget for the record, we execute the budget under the budget because, you know, I like to call it lean spending, where I challenge my directors to make sure that what they're buying is absolutely necessary. And also, I have a maintenance management background. So when we place a vehicle, it really needs it, because I understand that, and our mechanics give us, and that's the sort of thing we do. And also, the assessments for the properties in Bowie has gone up every year I've been here. And that, as Byron mentioned, that brings in between $1 and $2.5 million a year, more so than you would expect, absent the assessment. So we can project out where everybody will be up against the wall and the policymakers have to take action, but it may be elongated by those two things I mentioned. But just to have all the fact, all the variables. Go ahead, Byron, thank you.
Thank you for those responses. I guess the other thing is, you know, when I asked for the scenario was based on all things staying current.
Right.
If things change, which they will, and we know they will, if we want to remain competitive as far as bringing in staff, if we want to address the public safety issues that we've been dealing with, which the resident just testified on earlier, then we know those variables will change. And so therefore, 2026 becomes an extremely critical year for the city and for this council as far as decision-making around budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rogers.
Mr. Mayor,
Well,
we have a further question here.
that's what I was
Mr.
about
Brady?
to say. Who? Go ahead,
Councilman
you.
Brady.
Thank you. First off, thank you for this information. Kind of deja vu all over again. The city manager talked about his ninth budget. This is my 23rd over 30 years. And I can tell you that we've heard over the years very similar messages. This time it's getting a little tighter and a little more concerned. We've seen several things happening with the economy over the last few years, and actually with what's going on in Annapolis with the state budget and the upheaval possible in Washington with the federal budget, there's reason to be concerned for the next couple of years. It's not to say that things will actually get bad, get worse, get terrible. We just need to stay on top of our game. And that's what the city has traditionally done, and you're continuing the work that your predecessors have done in the past, and the city manager likewise. So, but I do share the concern, though, that especially when it comes to public safety, we have an excellent force. We have a great chief, probably greater, if you will, officers. They do a spectacular job. But we only have 65 or so for a population of 65,000, which is, we are understaffed. And I think in the coming budget, I think we need to look at an analysis of maybe what would it take, in particular the cost aspect of it, to maybe add one officer a year for the next 6 years or 2 officers a year, and see if we can come up with a way of accommodating that in order to address, if not real public safety issues in the city. And we've had some incidences here lately. It raises that concern, but definitely the perception. I would also, at our legislative dinner, Senator Watson had floated the idea about possibly putting a big solar farm up on the racetrack property and using that as a revenue source. Maybe we ought to think out of the box on how to generate revenue, because I doubt we're going to get the ability to do a piggyback sales tax for the city, because the state has historically been opposed to that. So that maybe if we look at the property, not necessarily the racetrack property, but the property off Church Road that we got bought for the ice arena, that would be an ideal place for a large solar farm that could possibly generate revenue. I would like to look at what the arrangement is that we have on Enthean to see if that, instead of just dropping our offsetting our cost of our buildings in the city, look at actually generating a revenue stream, and maybe do an analysis to see what the feasibility of looking at all the rooftops on city buildings and parking lots and city facilities to see if we can't maybe harness the sun in order to generate a revenue stream that may help us fill in some of those gaps. But the coming budget is going to be a challenging one, and I look forward to working with my colleagues and working with you and the city manager and the other staff members on it. We will continue to push forward and do a great job, as we've done for many, many, many years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. At this point,
One more.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to go to Councilman Truesdale.
Yes, Mayor. Yes, Mayor Adams. I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, okay, because I know when we had talked earlier, you said you had wanted to comment when we got to this portion. So I thought you and Councilman Brady, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Laura, would you go?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to chime in a little bit, provide some background guidance on where I think we ought to be going for the budget year. A couple of things, core services, we've already spoken about them this evening. We just absolutely positively must stay in that business and maintain it at its excellent level that we currently provide for our constituents. And I don't think that's an opportunity for any savings or diversions there. I know we have an opportunity to expand our recycling program to include to include food waste in the yard waste. I want to ensure that we're pursuing that in a fiscally responsible manner, and I think there's some opportunities perhaps with some third-party grants to get some equipment for that, bins and that sort of thing. But regardless, I think that that's someplace we'd like to be going moving forward. We've seen some presentations on that, so I'd like to see that coming in the reflected in the budget in some way, shape, or form. To be determined exactly what it looks like, but certainly to see it, coming through. We have. I don't see us canceling any projects, certainly not any major ones. Certainly the ice arena, I think, is a move forward. I do think that we have a $7 million expectation on CIPs, and there may be some items in that CIP program that get squeezed out to the following year to help manage, or so we don't spike. And indeed, there may be a point where we wouldn't even actually have the resources on hand to execute all those projects at once. So there may be some benefit to postponing those. There is a request I do have at some point in time. We have the water recapitalization program that needs to advance as quickly as possible. And as part of that discussion, I would like to have a presentation at some point taking a lessons learned from the Richmond incident, where they had their water outage, and I feel pretty confident that we don't have the same risk, but I would like to have at least a brief discussion about that for just verifying that, and public confidence as well. Public safety, we heard someone speaking about that earlier. We've seen as part of the strategic planning initiative that it is front and center in everybody's mind. I'm very much interested in fully staffing our police force, and I think that that's going to require some additional expenditures in some way, shape, or form to induce more employees or more officers to join our force. And I think we need to be aggressive in that. It's a competitive market. And I think that if there's places where we're going to spend more money than where we have in the past, that's a priority in my book. Obviously, road maintenance, snow removal, those are all those core services that we do so well and should be sustained. Something that's a more strategic initiative that does not reflect a great expenditure at this point is to start a process for, and this should come in the form of a budget objective, starting a process for reimagining the Bowie Town Center as a rebuilt, redone, true Bowie Town Center, consistent with, say, Pike and Rose up in Rockville, or the Bowie Town Center over in Virginia, which has a couple of applause here. We definitely need to have a plan for that. I know we don't own it, we don't control it, but I think we can imagine and envision, and then perhaps work in a collaborative manner with the property owners and the retailers to see what can be done. I'd really think that we have an opportunity to expand revenues, and that's from a tax base as well as to enliven our retail environment with an enhanced presence like that. So I'm looking for something that would start that project off in a meaningful manner. And I know we've got some some stuff that we already know about the property, so it's not ground zero, but I really do think we need to be in that position. And then also on the question here for Mr. Matthews, we have a 25% requirement for fund that presents a bit of a problem when we execute a major capital improvement, because all of a sudden it takes the expenditures up. I would like us to take a look at modifying that requirement slightly so that it's 25% of non-capital expenditures. Because in its current form, if I spent $20 million on a capital expenditure, then I would, by our current definition, require an additional $5 million in fund balance to cover that expenditure. And I don't think that that's where we really need to be. I think it needs to be more in keeping with our ongoing day-to-day. So if you could come back with something during this budget cycle with a refinement on that for the council to consider, I would appreciate that. And then going back to your charts on income taxes and property taxes, we've seen both of those go up. Can you look and see if there's any third-party data sources that may exist? I know that we do not have much transparency with the state in terms of what type of income we will get from income taxes, for example, revenue from income taxes, and indeed for property taxes, we have a little bit better insight, but there may be some third-party data points that we could go out and find that we could use to better forecast what those revenues will be, because I know going into the budget cycle we use current, but we know that there's going to be, changes, and typically I think they are all attributable to some underlying factors, including property values and so forth. So if we could look for a third-party data on that to help perhaps better forecast out what those revenue numbers would be, that'd be great. And I think that sums it up for me. As usual, your team does a great job, and look forward to the process. I know it's going to take a lot of time. It's bottom-up, ground zero-based budgeting. So thanks in advance to you and all your team, Mr. City Manager, as well, in getting this program kicked off. Thank you.
All righty. Before we move on, again, I'd like to give Councilwoman Ndabamadu a chance to make any comments.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. Really good presentation, a lot of helpful context. So thank you so much, Mr. Matthews. I think I echo a lot of the comments that were made by Dufour, and with a lot of those topical areas, we have been talking about them for many years now, like how to re-envision economic development in the city, especially starting with Bowie Town Center and then looking at specific pockets in District 4 as well as Old Bowie. So I echo those sentiments as well. I think a couple of things that I would add. Number one, starting with federal grants. I know that we already have a team that goes after that robustly. I know Mr. Buggs and the Grants Management Office really goes after that robustly. But I think for this particular budget cycle, given that we have a new administration in the United States of America, just really looking at those administration priorities and some of our budget objectives and goals, and really figuring out how we can align to really get some more federal funding and some more investment, direct investment into the city of Bowie. So that would be a big area. I know when we think about solar or energy or transportation, as well as specifically technology, those are really, really big opportunity areas from everything that I've been reading coming out of the White House. I think the second part around it is, I know we've talked a little bit about the Church Road property. The Church Road property, I know Mr. Mayor talked about that about a year and a half ago, looking at possibly establishing a solar farm there. I think another opportunity, not for that parcel in particular, but just anywhere throughout the city, is really looking at manufacturing. we know that manufacturing has pretty much been a trend that's been creeping up over the last couple of months, where people are thinking about how do we bring manufacturing back to the United States of America and invest in supply chain diversification. So I think it would be wise of us to start to look into manufacturing opportunities, and if there are opportunities like that in the city of Bowie. I know when we had our legislative dinner, Senator Watson talked about how he was looking at that with Upper Marlboro and connecting some investors to really bring opportunities to Upper Marlboro. So that might be another good opportunity area, as it will not only just bring us increased revenue, but it'll also bring jobs to our constituency. So I think that's also another area that we might want to look at as along with the energy efficient developments. I think another area that might be helpful for us as well is in terms of priorities, budget objectives, smart cities. I know that the IT department is really working on proposing something really robust and really meaningful. So really just going further on the smart city side and really looking at the core use cases across the entire city and really shoring that up so that we can start to go after some unique grants with Prince George's County. I know that's going to be also a big priority for the county as well. So just really making sure that we're leveraging those opportunities to go after smart cities and everything that falls under smart cities with artificial intelligence and other different use cases that fall under that bucket. I think that's about it from me, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it.
Right. Thank you. I wanted to
Mr.
go to Councilmember Esteve if he had anything, and then I'll loop back to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Just a big thank you to Byron and all of our staff for your work on this every year. I am, in the past, we've had conversations about the imminent demise of our reserve fund. I've been reading about that in the 10 years that I've been on the city council, and I think some of my colleagues who were on the council previously would say they've been hearing about that for probably as long as 30 years. And so either we have the best run of luck in the world, or we're just really conservative in our estimates, or a little bit of both. And so I will take a conservative outlook over the alternative. I would much rather be worried about the sky falling and have it not fall for all these decades. So I do appreciate that. But I would just encourage my colleagues to remember that as we go forward, that this has been a trend for a while. And I think that we will find we have the capacity to get through some of our major projects, achieve many of our goals, and maintain a pretty healthy long-term fiscal position. I will just reiterate, especially since we have a lot of folks in the audience tonight, I think related to our business development approach, we have, I think, 2-3 grants right now out for different organizations that are working on economic development. We're going to be contemplating another one tonight. I think it is a normal thing for local governments to want to throw money in the tens of thousands of dollars here and there at economic development. I don't think that money usually results in the kinds of big picture outcomes that we want. I think if we're really serious about economic development, we all need to be talking to every single person who's interested in becoming our next county executive. And we need to tell them that priority number 1, 2, and 3 has to be reforming the Department of Permitting, Inspection, and Enforcement. It has been too long that we've been hearing from every broker, every development attorney, every business owner, every entrepreneur in this county for years that agency is their number one challenge. It's nothing else. Not crime, nothing else. That agency is their number one challenge. So if we're interested in expanding our tax base in the form of more businesses, that needs to be the conversation we're having right now. This is the prime opportunity to be having that talk. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Councilman Dufour, before I wrap it up, you go right ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity for a go back. I forgot one item for Mr. Matthews. You thought you got away with it, but no, I got one more. South Lake is coming online. I know we have no revenue from South Lake of consequence. If Byron, if you could see if you can conjure up what that's costing us in terms of the added expenditures, whether it's for trash and other services, as well as police or what have you. I'd like to get a feel for, how much we're kind of taking a hit for on that. Very much appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. And I think I'll just sum this area up in saying, like every other municipality all across, where there's going to be challenges we're going to face. A couple of quick things is some of the issues that were mentioned we are working on. For example, we've asked for a little more insight from the county council on some of the dollars, where they're going, what we're able to get. I know we are currently talking with the county council and the county about that parcel of land that we had where they put restrictions on how we could use it. We as a city have engaged them and have talked to them, and then trying to get that to be able to do, as one of the council members brought to your attention, that we were trying to get that as a potential solar farm, which would then be creating and generating revenue as well. So all of the options are on the table, but it's sort of like what one of our colleagues just said is we want to make sure that we look for things that we have a high probability of winning. We do have limited resources. So, some things may sound like a very, very good idea, but you have to look at what the probability of win for us will be. And so a lot of that are things that will fall to the city manager and the rest of the city staff to help us take a look at what some of those are in conjunction with the council. Having said that, good presentation. I look forward to us moving forward and doing all the things, the hard work and making the hard decisions that benefit the majority of the citizens in the city of Bowie. So with that, unless there's some other really
Mr. Mayor,
hot topic on this.
it's the city manager.
Yes.
I got a couple of short things to say.
Okay, go right ahead.
The main purpose is for me and the finance to understand what you want, what your priorities are. And of course, I'm going to go back and in compliance with the charter, I'm going to produce a balanced budget in April.
All right.
One other thing, the chief of police is scheduled for an police update on February the 3rd. And I'm sure he'll be prepared to address any particular public safety issues that may come up. Also, our numbers, we were short 10 a year or so ago. I think we're down to 4 or 5 now, and we got 4 in the academy, just for the record. Also, we just finished the acquisition process to attain a marketing company to help market Bowie to people in the country to come and be a police officer in this suburban city. And because everybody doesn't want to work everywhere. You want some hot shot situation, go to Chicago, New York. But if you want a peaceful suburban law enforcement experience, this is it. And so I project that we'll be a lot better off in a few months in that respect. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And along those lines, city manager, please make sure that in the proposed budget, that we make sure that all the needs in public safety, that we get them in the budget. I mean, the number one thing that we hear from most people is about public safety, and with some of those incidents that came from outside of the city into the city, we just want to make sure that we show the citizens and make sure that we support our first responders. And so please make sure that's it's very clear. As always, I think our budgets are always really good, but make sure you understand that we're looking forward to seeing what that will take for us, okay?
I understand.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, we will now move on to item, bear with me, my phone went down. Item B, the detailed site plan, DSP 20003-03, the Chipotle. I'll turn it over to you, City. Staff.
We're making a seating adjustment when we're ready for a minute. So,
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Rodwan Coker, the city's transportation planner here to introduce this item. This is the detailed site plan, DSP-20003-03. It's a revision to the Mill Branch Crossing site plan. It is for a Chipotle restaurant, approximately 2,335 square feet in size on a parcel that's approximately 1 acre. The property, as you know, is under development now. There are townhouses that are being built in the rear portion of the site. This is the property right across from Walmart on US 301 on the east side of US 301 at Mill Branch Crossing. The preliminary subdivision plan was approved in 2021 for this property. Since that time, there's been only one other plan that's come through for review. That's for the dash-in and convenience store gas pumps and car wash at the northern end of the development. And this applicant is proposing, as I said, about a 2,500 square foot Chipotle eating and drinking establishment with the drive-through, and that is shown on attachment 1 of your package, a copy of the site plan and the landscape plan as well. We do have a PowerPoint to show you all today that Mr. Edward Gibbs will be presenting. The county planning board date is set for January 30th. The criteria for approval of a detailed site plan is simply that the planning board may approve the site plan if it finds the plan represents a reasonable alternative to satisfying the county site design guidelines. We did look at the comments that were produced by the reviewing agencies and park and planning. There were only 2 recommendations: that a minimum of 2 bike racks shall be provided near the entrance of the restaurant, and a trip generation matrix detailing the approved and proposed development in comparison to the established trip cap. The Bowie Advisory Planning Board met on Tuesday, December 10th to review the detailed site plan, DSP-20003-03 for a Chipotle eating and drinking establishment with a drive-through service. The BAPB unanimously moved to recommend approval for the detailed site plan in accordance following the recommendations provided. And with that concludes the staff presentation. Mr. Edward Gibbs is here representing the applicant, and he will be delivering the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Adams, members of the council. Pleasure to be back again. Edward Gibbs, an attorney with offices in Largo, representing Green Branch LLC, the owner and master developer of Mill Branch Crossing. I have with me Mr. William Chesley, who is the owner of Green Branch and the master developer, and he's been at this particular project for over 22 years. Also with me is Ms. Kim Morgan of Land Tech and Ms. Jackie Plott of Traffic Concepts, just in case you have any questions. We've been before you on several occasions with regard to this project. We came in when we were really going through the initial preliminary subdivision plan, and we've had a series of detailed site plans. We had a detailed site plan for the multifamily component and the townhome component. Dash-In came in on their own with their site plan and special exception for a gas station with convenience store and then a car wash, respectively. We were here about a month ago on our first detailed site plan. And I might add, if you look at the map that's on display in the monitor, you'll see the multifamily component is directly in the center of that overall detailed site plan drawing. The townhomes are to the east, the northeast and the southeast. And there is what I would call really the primary internal roadway. And by the way, all of the roads internal to the site, as well as one of the perimeter roads, are private. So at the top of that drawing, which would be to the west, you see US 301. Mill Branch Road comes off of 301 heading east-southeast at the left-hand side of that drawing. There's a circle at a point there on Mill Branch where drivers will turn left, and that is St. Ridgely Boulevard. That is a private road. And then again, all of the internal roads are private. So as you're coming down St. Ridgely, just after making that turn, you'll see another road, the Spine Road. It's called St. Lola Lane. And as you come up that road, on the west side of that road, you'll see a series of lots. They're actually outlots. Those are the sites of all of the retail commercial components of the project. And so tonight, we have, and bear in mind, when we went to record plat, we didn't know exactly how all these commercial lots would be configured. It would all depend upon who the user ultimately would be, how much acreage they needed. So what we worked out with the Park and Planning Commission and the Planning Board was that we would plat these all as what we call outlots. They're non-buildable lots. We would come in for detailed site plan, and we would use parts of outlots. And then after approval of the detailed site plan, file a new final plat for just that lot. It would become a parcel. So tonight, we're here on outlots, part of outlot 8 and part of outlot 9. Together, they're 2.2 acres, but the portion splitting the common boundary line for the Chipotle is about 0.9 of an acre, 0.86 to be specific. So once this detailed site plan is concluded, we'll be able to go to record plat and create a new platted parcel consisting of part of outlot 8 and part of outlot 9. I don't know that we need the...
The little clicker's broken, so you have to use the keyboard.
Okay, so, yeah. Using the keyboard to accomplish this is beyond my capabilities. And so I know a lot of things, but that's one thing I don't know. Or maybe I don't know a lot of things. I know some things really well, though. But in any event, so we're part of outlot 8 and part of outlot 9. Chipotle is very excited about this possibility. It is a traditional Chipotle with one exception. Very recently, Chipotle has started using a drive-through component. But it's a very specialized drive-through concept. You cannot pull into the driveway and order a meal from your car. You can only order remotely ahead of time, and then you can come through the drive-through lane to pick up your meal and take it with you. So that's the unique feature of their drive-through service. Chipotle feels very confident that there is a superior market for this restaurant. And I know that there is a Chipotle over in Bowie Town Center, but they've done their market research and feel there is ample justification for this one as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. The architecture, I think, is pleasing. And we'll be back again next month, I guess it is, on our first inline retail building, which is going to be immediately adjacent to or abutting the site where the Chipotle would be located. So with that having been said, unless either of my expert witnesses have anything to add, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. In regards to your outlots, how many are there in all?
I think there are 12. I think it's
Okay.
12. 13. Okay, 13 outlots.
Are they to be in particular phases with this whole project?
No, really, Mr. Chesley there's substantial interest overall in the project, and basically, he's just in the process of negotiating contracts and leases, and so we're coming one right after the next. So this is the second, the third, actually, if you count that dash in, the inline retail building, which will be the home to several individual retailers. That's going to be next, but he's in constant negotiation with other tenants, and in some cases possibly purchasers of the land that they'll have their unit on. And so it's really just a question of how fast he concludes negotiations, but I can tell you there's substantial interest from other tenants out there right now.
Okay, so the anchor unit, is that projected already? Do you have an idea of who that?
I think I would defer to Mr. Chesley. I know that there are substantial negotiations with possible food stores, which would be one of the substantial users. There is also substantial interest from another user. I'm not at liberty to, because of their requirements, I'm not at liberty to disclose, but they would be quite a substantial user in the project. But I don't know whether Mr. Chesley wants to add anything to that.
No, that's fine. We have a lot to do tonight. So just wanted to ask, in regards of the online, can you explain that just a little more? You're saying that the drive-through, you cannot.
Yeah, it's
unless you're in the parking lot. And what is the reason for that?
Quite frankly, I think it's just their idea of how they can be as speedy as possible and not have backups into the parking lot, because Chipotle never had drive-through.
Yeah.
And this is just how they are introducing the concept. I've done probably 3 other Chipotle restaurants in the county at various locations, and it's just simply their preference for not having to have folks sit in line, wait to make an order at a radio board, then drive up and pay for it and move on. They feel that if people either order online or call in for an order, the process can be speedier.
Yeah, and I ask that because, we just had an incident a week or 2 ago at a Chipotle. And I know Chipotle is crime is not a Chipotle thing, nor is it a Bowie thing, more of a regional thing. It happens everywhere. But I was just curious, have there been any conversations with the franchise in terms of how can we, project or overlook some of these things, and especially with, we have a Chipotle right down
Right.
far too.
Right. Honestly, quite frankly, I'd have to defer to Mr. Chesley on that one because I don't negotiate the leases. He does all that himself. And so my actual contact with the ultimate users is somewhat limited. So that's not something that I would have a conversation about. I would invite Mr. Chesley to respond. Just a question about security.
Security?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Chesley.
Good evening. Good evening, all, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Thank you. So I had trouble hearing your question, but you were concerned about security in the project?
Yeah, so the question in terms of not having a whole lot of movement, a whole lot of, people in one place at a time, right? So the situation that happened, how are we looking at in terms of security in that shopping?
I'm not sure I have the expertise to tell you how and when that you would need to have more than normal security. Our project is what you call a walkable community, and if you can see the plans that we have, that all the retail users are spread out and have their own pad, their own parking, so you're not like a shopping center or a mall or your town center development. And so we're spread out, and it's mixed use because it has a lot of residential, a lot of commercial. We're working with a lot of people, one for a hotel, some other food restaurants, a sit-down restaurant we prefer to have there. I don't know what you do or need to do in regard to security when you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And we're not anticipating that. It's a very nice area, very nice homes across the street in Mill Branch Estates. But certainly if we do, we're retaining all of these properties. So we will do whatever's necessary to maintain our property.
Thank you.
I hope that helps you.
That helps a lot. That
Okay.
helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you done?
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes,
have a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't see your hand up. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you very much. So just a general question, because I've seen several franchises open up for different businesses, such as, Chick-fil-A on 301 or Cane's, Chicken Cane, whatever it's called, right across the highway. And my concern is if the Chipotle is as popular as it could be for drive-through, just making sure that when you're in a community where you can live, work, and play, that it's safe. So, and it's also constructed so that it is not causing any backup to residential streets or 301. And so based on what I'm hearing, you're feeling pretty sure that what Chipotle has recommended is something that will continue to keep that community safe, allow for people that want to walk or ride, live, work, play, and not back up into the residential streets or into 301.
Correct. I think that's a fair comment and an accurate summation. I mean, great pains have been taken to make the entire community pedestrian-friendly and bicycle-friendly, as well as for vehicles. And that's part of the reason why Mr. Chesley created this spine road that runs through the project, and all of the commercial is on the west side of that spine road. The residential is all on the east side of that spine road. That being said, we have sidewalks throughout the community. We have crosswalks across St. Lola Lane. We have intentionally designed the bike racks so that they're very close to the front of all the stores. And we have a marked bicycle pathway to get to the bicycle racks at the stores, all done in the name of safety of the residents who will live in the community being able to come and use the retail. So I think, and again, I do think that the Chipotle concept with their drive-through really will aid in making sure that cars come in and out as quickly as possible if folks don't want to park and go inside to eat. So all of that, to me, brings us to a situation where we have pretty safe circulation pattern for motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians. And like Mr. Chesley said, we can design the site as safely as absolutely possible. We think it's going to be a great and safe community, but because of his investment and his staying with the project in terms of ownership, he's going to do whatever is necessary to address if, God forbid, any problem did occur.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councilwoman Endabamadu, do you have a question?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I was trying to find the mute button. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's really good to hear from you guys. Just a quick question. Are the reps from Chipotle here tonight, or is it just the developer?
Yeah, no, they are not here, just the developer. Yeah.
Okay, and will they be coming before us at the next point?
Well, Chipotle is not scheduled to come back here again. I think we're coming back in, I think March 3rd, we're back on the inline. And if you would like us to request that Chipotle send a representative along for that meeting, I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, can we send a request that Chipotle send a representative? Let me just give you a brief context as to why I'm asking that. I know that this conversation is going to be specific to like preliminary site plans and stuff like that, but I do believe here in the city of Bowie, as we are having conversations about preliminary site plans, we do need to really look at the businesses that are coming into the city of Bowie and consider that as a holistic kind of outlook as we are looking at preliminary site plans. I am happy that Chipotle is expanding because I do believe that they're a great company that stands on a lot of integrity. The things that I would want to bring up with them and highlight that you may not be able to answer today, but it's worth taking note of. The first one is supply chain and food integrity. I really want to make sure that as Chipotle is expanding in the city of Bowie, that they are looking at their supply chain and they're sourcing their food from local farmers that are here in fresh produce. Because there has been a consistent theme in the city of Bowie at some grocery stores, and I'm not saying that Chipotle works with grocery stores, but I'm just using it as a high level example. Some grocery stores will oftentimes have expired produce or expired goods that does not lend to the food integrity that we hope to have here for those who seek to establish their businesses in the city of Bowie. So that'll be a big deal for me to be just to be able to understand like how are they approaching supply chain diversity? Are they working with local farmers that are local to the city of Bowie, that are local to Prince George's County, as well as the food integrity aspect of it and how they're making sure that from a quality perspective, that it maintains the standards of what we want to really be able to provide to our constituency. That would be the first theme. I think the second one is Chipotle does have a new responsible restaurant design. And in that responsible restaurant design, I know they focused on an all electric restaurant, focused on maximizing energy efficiency and utilizing systems that utilize 100% renewable energy and wind power and solar. So I want to hear a little bit more about that and the design and how that plays a factor. And if this is going to be the new responsible restaurant design, if that's like a consistent theme across all of their new restaurants, or if that's just specific to some locations. So that would be a second part of the design aspect of it. And then I think the third part and the final part is workforce development. When Blink EV charging first came to the city of Bowie, I had a meeting with them in terms of how they were willing to invest in workforce development and create jobs. Now here in the city of Bowie, I know that they will be employing some of our constituents, and it is my hope that they will employ directly from the city of Bowie and not just Prince George's County as a whole. But as we are looking at the hospitality industry and the fact that there is a service shortage of hospitality workers, that there is a program or a pathway for them to be able to develop in the company, and they're not just working at the Chipotle store that is at the local restaurant and only working maybe as a cashier or as a server, that there are actually opportunities for our constituency, for those who may not want to go into other professions and may want to grow in the hospitality industry, to be able to possibly matriculate to other roles in corporate from Chipotle, and that's directly coming from this community. So those are the things that I'd want to hear from the Chipotle representative, just so you have something to take back to them.
Thank you. I'll do that.
All right. At this time, I would like to go to the city clerk and open up for the public hearing. Do we have anyone speaking? Madam City Clerk.
No, Mayor, no one signed up this evening, and no comments were received via email.
Okay, and then at this time, I declare the public hearing closed. At this time, is there any action, any motions from the council? No motion on the current site plan.
Yeah. I'm not.
Hey, hearing none.
I'm not.
I hear
Mr. Mayor,
someone
I'd like to
speaking.
make a motion. Second. Thank you.
I don't
sorry,
know what happened just now. There was a lack of.
I need clarification of what the motion is
I'm making a
approving.
motion to accept the
Yeah.
detailed site plan as presented.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please respond with a yay.
Yay.
Yay. All in opposed, respond with a nay.
Nay.
Madam City, and those who choose to abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, could you add up the votes for me, please? Madam City Attorney Clerk.
Councilmember Devermalo, what was your vote? I can't, your picture is too small on the screen. Can you speak?
It's a yay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So Mayor, from what I could tell, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses, 1 no. No. 2. The 4, Councilmember
May I
Wolfley is
ask,
a
just for
no.
simplicity purpose, for simplicity purpose, perhaps we could just do a roll call vote, just to clarify it.
I will ask then for you to do a roll call vote, please.
Okay.
Just,
Mayor, can I say something, Mayor? Can I just for a request that we do have a representative of Chipotle to come next month with the anchor store as well? Because there are questions that we want to, ask them, and we prefer, to have that. Is it?
Well, yeah, at this time, I think we've had a motion and a
Post the hearing.
second.
Okay.
So I believe unless, and I will refer to our attorney, since we took one vote and it wasn't clear, do we need to resubmit a motion to follow, or do we just ask for a roll call on the same motion that we had before?
You can just ask for roll call.
Okay, so it's on there. Let's do a roll call and we'll go from there. I will go last.
Okay. Councilmember Stev? Abstain. Councilmember Rogers?
Yay.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley?
nay.
Councilmember Brady? Yay. Councilmember Ndebumadu?
Aye.
Councilmember Truesdale? Mayor Adams?
Yay.
Okay, so I have 4 yays, 1 nay, and 2 abstains.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We will now move on to the preliminary plan of subdivision PPS 4-23041. And turn it over to city staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ashley Diaz, a Sustainability Manager. This preliminary plan of subdivision is for the 31.5 acres of land at the southeast quadrant of the intersection of Mount Oak and Church Road in an area just outside of the city limits. The area is zoned RE for residential estate, which allows uses like estate-style homes, some agriculture, and certain types of institutional development. The PPS includes parcel A for 8 single-family detached homes connecting into Dew Drive, which is within the city, and parcel 1 for the institutional development. The planning board heard this case in December, and after reviewing the letter that the city wrote recommending disapproval, they approved the PPS, but with conditions. Condition 5A states that the applicant should meet with the city to discuss the issue of Dew Drive, and if a resolution cannot come from it, it might be platted as an out parcel. So that is the goal of tonight, and with that, I will hand it over to the applicant and Mr. Paul Jackson. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Paul Jackson from the law offices of Shipley and Horn on behalf of the applicant, Redeemed Christian Church of God, who's here tonight with three of its pastors, Pastor Femi, Pastor Deli, and Pastor Isaac. As Ms. Diaz mentioned, on December 5th, we were before the Prince George's County Planning Board on our preliminary plan of subdivision application. At that hearing, the board approved the application with conditions. And on January 9th, the Prince George's County Planning Board signed resolutions for that approval. As Ms. Diaz stated, the approval had a condition. One of the conditions concerns the 8 residential lots that connects Dew Drive. Dew Drive is located within the city of Bowie limits, which is why we're here this evening. And that condition provides that the applicant obtain approval and agreement from this body and the Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation regarding maintenance and access, trash removal, snow removal and trash pickup for the extension of Dew Drive onto the 8 residential lots. So we're here tonight asking for this body to approve and allow the county to maintain, again, pick up the trash and snow removal, et cetera, for the Dew Drive extension. And I just want to bring up 2 things. So one question is, why are the 8 lots connected to Dew Drive and not Mount Oak Road? And the reason is for the safety of everyone, for everyone who drives on Mount Oak Road. Prior to the preliminary plan of subdivision application, the applicant's engineer, Atwell Engineers, looked at access directly onto Mount Oak Road. And 3 issues came up: intersection and site distance issues, and distance between offset intersections. So on this lot right here, you'll see the 8 lots and then extension to Mount Oak Road. And then this right here, there's an offset issue with where that entrance is depicted, and I believe what's Marjorie Timbers Court. There are those 2 intersections would be too close and be dangerous for drivers on Mount Oak Road. The engineer also looked at putting the entrance directly across from Marjorie Timbers Road, and there's site distance and intersection safety issues there. Again, that's for everyone driving on Mount Oak Road. This is a residential, this property, these 10 acres are zoned residential estate. Residential estate means that the minimum lot size has to be 8 acres with 1 family dwelling. So based on those dimensions, with these 10 acres, the applicant could get 8 lots. And then for the driveway configurations, again, connecting on the Mount Oak, it'll be unsafe for everyone. And this is just a picture going east on Mount Oak Road, and then that curve that we all see there. So those are the site distance issues. So we're here today just asking this body to approve and allow the county to maintain the extension of Dew Drive.
Okay, so having said that, before I start, I will open it up for council members who have some questions at this time. Any questions, anyone?
Yes, thank you. And I would like to thank all the residents that came from Woodmore Estates here tonight. And I know it's cold and I know it's getting late, but for the most part, this is important. And thank you for sharing your voice. Dew Drive, I actually went there today and some of you riding up that road. It's so narrow. It's definitely a residential place area, and to typically on Mount Oak Road, first, it's as a homeowner, you know, we buy these homes not just for the day, but for future development, and for some, not developing at all around it. It's a great, nice community. I live on Governor Bridge, and we have houses there, and there is no connection. Have there been any updates with the study for the alternative road coming through Mount Oak? Because you have variances, correct?
There hasn't been no studies because the engineers, you know, I had it up on the screen earlier.
Okay.
As far as connection for the 8 residential lots to Mount Oak, but there's just distance and intersection distance issues.
Yes.
Yes. Site distance and intersection issues connecting the 8 residential lots to Mount Oak.
But there are 2 roads that are going to connect to the church off Mount Oak. Is that correct?
So that's the other parcel, the parcel which the church is on. Yes, there's 2 entrances going in and out from there, yes.
Would there be any connection from the church to the 8 lots? You good? You need some water?
Hey, Councilman.
Yes.
Councilman Truesdale. At this time, we really should do the public hearing and give those who are to speak, and then come back for the questioning, okay?
Okay, great.
So at this, I would like to open a public hearing on this matter, and I'd like to ask if there are any people signed up to speak, Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Mayor, we do have quite a few residents signed up to speak, and also for the record, we did receive 10 comments via email in regards to this hearing, and those have been forwarded to council for your review.
Okay, so would you please give that to the Mayor Pro Tem? Mayor Pro Tem, would you please call those?
Happy to do so, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Very good, thank you. Just as a quick reminder, this is an opportunity for each of you to come and speak on and provide your thoughts, issues, and concerns with regards to this issue. It's not really a back and forth dialogue discussion, but we're here to hear and get the input from everybody that's listed. And I'm delighted to see that we have a fair number of folks here today. And so forgive me if I have a tough time interpreting handwriting. I will begin with what looks like a Tamara Dickey. Thank you and welcome.
Welcome. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members.
If you could bring that a little closer to you.
The mic?
You bet. Just to make sure people can hear you both here and at home.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Good evening, residents. My name is Tamara Dickey. I am a 12-year resident of Bowie. My concerns that I want to express here tonight are mainly with the church being built off of Mount Oak. Being a resident here for 12 years, I've noticed that there has already been a significant amount of pickup of traffic on Church Road, but I have not really seen or heard of any updating of the infrastructure of the roads, of anything around Church Road. And so I literally travel that road every day, and I see it kind of falling apart. So my concern with the church, the added traffic from all of the residents that may attend the church, also with the construction. So with the construction, my concern is with, again, the congestion of the traffic, of trucks and things that may have to come back and forth for building it. Also with our neighborhood being so close to where the church is being built, the noise that comes with the construction. The other couple things I have too are just where the location of where that church is. I can name 8 churches right off the bat that are within at least 5-mile proximity of that church. So I'm just kind of, I guess, struggling to try to see what the benefit to our community would be to have that church there. Some of my other concerns are, I feel like the vision for our city is to maybe have a little bit more Black-owned businesses that actually, you know, I feel like actually support or will provide more, substance to the community. But other than that, those are just some of my concerns. Some of the traffic, the congestion, again, the close proximity into where we live, the noise, the added traffic, and then again, not knowing if the infrastructure of Church Road will even be able to sustain that. So that's all I have.
Thank you so very much for coming in this evening on
Thank
this
you.
cold winter's night.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. And I should mention, we do have a time limit. It's 5 minutes, but doesn't mean we have to take it all. Let's see, next on our list, it looks like it might be Derek Plummer. Is that possible? 2219 David Circle? Court, excuse me. Court, oh yeah.
Court, actually.
Sorry,
I see
yeah, David Court, yes, there it is.
That's enough my own street. I promise I will not use all 5 minutes. Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, my council member, Mr. Truesdale. My name is Derek Plummer. I've testified before this body on this matter multiple times. I stand before you as a resident, as a father. It was funny, I talked to my kids before I left, and I told them I was coming here to speak for them, to speak for our community. The reality is the developer, including its representative, Mr. Jackson, have shown a contempt for the residents of Woodmore Estates, of the community, and arguably this very body. You know, there was a comment made earlier about DPI being the #1 issue. I would argue the planning board is also an issue, because the reality is that here in Prince George's County, we as citizens have not actually had a real opportunity to engage in this process. The reality is that this project by this developer failed 3 traffic studies because of the congestion that you talked about. It failed 3 traffic studies because this property parcel that would be connected to our city, those 8 homes, would increase traffic on Driftwood, increase traffic on Dew Drive, and the infrastructure is not there, and there's no requirement. The planning board did not put any requirement upon this developer to actually do anything of substance to ensure that we as residents of that surrounding area would actually be cared for when it comes to this particular project. I'm not talking about the institutional project, because that is something very different. What we can control and what will impact our livelihood directly, and when I say livelihood, I'm talking about the economic interest that we have as homeowners. I'm talking about our ability to enjoy our properties. I'm talking about our economic interests. The reality is that projects like this that are ill-conceived, that are not actually appropriate for the areas in which they are supposed to be built, have a deleterious impact on the communities. And let's also be very clear about what the city of Bowie has said and stated when it comes to its own environmental concerns, related to how we show up in the world, how we show up in Prince George's County. We have the Green Plan. We put together a 10-year sustainability plan. And this project would actually disturb the specimens, trees, would disturb the habitats for animals, and would actually have a deleterious impact on the environment. And so I encourage you as members of this body, as our representatives of those of us that actually live in Prince George's County, but live in Bowie specifically, to reject this connection. This is not a project that we wanted. This is not a project that is good for our community or for our benefit, and it will negatively impact us from infrastructure issues, environmental issues, economic issues. So I thank you for your time. I probably went almost 5 minutes. But again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And as you talk to the county about DPI, talk about the planning board. It's a shame that we don't actually have a real voice when it comes to these types of ill-conceived projects in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate your thoughts. Next speaker is Angela Bessinga. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, council members, and thank you for this opportunity. First of all, I want to thank the city of Bowie for everything that you do. Thanks for your consistent communication to us about what is happening in the city. I live in 14503. I remember when we wanted to buy the property, the quietness, the peace of the environment, that is number one that was taken into consideration. The fact that we have children, we left where we were living because it was too crowded, too busy, and our kids got to interact with a lot of people that we were not sure what their future would be. So we decided to look for where it was really quiet, so when we came to Bowie, we thought that we found a very peaceful and quiet environment to grow up our kids. So when I learned about the connection to Do Drive, which is very close, our neighborhood, the houses are so close together, and then now a road that will bring a lot of people around the neighborhood is such a concern for me. I don't feel too well, but I said I have to be here to at least let my voice be heard. If not for anything, but for our children in the Do Drive community, please. I don't approve of this, but I'll leave it to you all to think about it and consider the future of our kids.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our next speaker is Sherry Cox Stewart. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, council members, my colleagues, my neighbors, our friends. I am very concerned about this whole exercise. I have been living in my home for the last 17 years. I am the last house on Dew Drive. So you can just imagine how this will affect us. As my neighbor just said, it took us quite a while to purchase our home. Quite a while in terms of putting our funds together to find a place that would be appropriate for our children and grandchildren. And that's the reason that it took us so long to buy our property. We chose Woodmore Estates. We chose Bowie because we knew that Bowie was a very well-run city that cares about its residents. And for that, we thank you all. And we do appreciate everything you do from day to day for the residents. We pay a lot of taxes on our properties. And we do not appreciate the fact that the Prince George's Planning Board did not consider us, did not consider our environment. Our environment at the moment is as good as you and us, the residents, try to make it. Now, with a church coming in and this extension of Dew Drive, everyone knows what the traffic studies have shown, that the church has failed several traffic studies. We know that the whole thing is bad for the environment, it's bad for ecology, and not to mention, as the previous speaker said, the economics of our properties. And for that, especially for the congestion that is going to cause, I do not want to have to wait 15 minutes, 20 minutes to come into my home. This is what I have found when I go to communities where there are churches. If I go to visit someone, I'm sitting there for 20, 30 minutes while the police allows everyone from the church to come and go. Now, I'm a resident.
And such traffic congestion and such pollution of our environment that we have paid so much to maintain, I do not think it's right. Dew Drive is so narrow, nobody has mentioned anything about the infrastructure, as our previous speaker said. So where does that put us? Where does that put us and our families? Where does that put us and our children? Some of us have children and older adults, seniors, who have health issues. We chose Bowie, we chose Woodmore Estates because we felt that it was a healthy environment, and we pay dearly to stay there. So please, we would ask you not to agree for an extension on Dew Drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our next speaker is, looks like James Albert. Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. I'm James Albert. My wife is on travel, although I should be here. I'm here opposing the application to build a grossly sized place of worship and 8 additional residential parcels. In 2018, I routed an application to build a 20-foot by 40-foot, 800 square foot agricultural storage as part of our historic property adjacent to this property, Mulligan's Delight, a Prince George's County registered historic site built in 1698. That application was denied to build a 20-foot by 80-foot storage building because it was oversized and not sympathetic to similarly sized buildings in the surrounding area. Referring to City Court, Prince George's, Maryland case 19-18641, the applicant requested a water change based on the basis of a 60,000 square foot facility. That was considered. It was initially a 25,000 square foot facility. Now proposed is a 117,000 square foot facility, which is 200% larger than the last consideration. At that consideration, it was made distinctly clear that no additional residential parcels were to be included. This Amazon distribution center sized facility is just short of now being 2 times larger. I used Google Maps between routes 50 and 214 Central Avenue and 193 and 301 within 4 square miles. 38 churches came up, and using Maryland's SDAT, Real Property Data Search, those average facilities average 3,000 square feet. This proposal is 36.9 times larger, not 36% larger, 36.9 times percent larger. This is a grossly oversized to similar surrounding buildings in the surrounding area, not sympathetic to the neighbors or the neighborhood. Next, this application shares the rectangle to 2311, which built a gathering hall 9 weeks after he bought it and is operating as a church. So now we will have dueling churches' entrances separated by a telephone pole and a mailbox. My wife and I have been the first responders to 13 plus accidents that led up to the Water County consideration, which involved ambulatory, helicopter, and the closing of Church Road to talk to the concern of the infrastructure and the asphalt square footage of this. We have a tax consideration approved by the Department of Natural Resources, the state of Maryland's Department of Natural Resources, that planted 1,300 trees for the agricultural restoration and beautification, which this asphalt square footage is an exact opposite of the state of Maryland's and the city of Bowie's intent.
I request that you reject and deny this application on the basis of this, and the rejection of my 20-foot by 80-foot square building due to similarly sized areas in the surrounding area, sympathetic to the design of the neighborhood. I'm a veteran and a civil servant, a taxpayer of Prince George's County since 2001. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Our next speaker is Nana Kwame.
Good evening.
Good evening and welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, citizens of Bowie. In addition to the comments that have been made, I'm here to register my objection to this application for several reasons, but I'll mention a few of them. Obviously, the traffic studies have been mentioned. They failed 3 traffic studies. There's no clear indication how they're going to handle traffic both into the church and into the new development. It says here that the planning board asked them to come up with a tree conservation plan, and they couldn't do it. So they're asking to compensate that at a different site. That doesn't make sense to me. You're just ruining the existing site to compensate it at a different site. So to me, that's not enough. I'm surprised the board even allowed that to begin with, particularly knowing our lots are most of them are in a tree conservation area. Like I can't, in my property behind it, I can't cut trees unless I get permission, both from the city and the county. How they're allowed to go about this is just boggles my mind. But the third point I really like to bring up is what they presented today. And I don't know if you guys noticed. So they presented 3 plans here, all right? One, they want to come through Dew Drive, but 2 of the plans were connecting to Mount Oak. But then they say the engineers didn't like the way you would come in and come out, so they had to cut the size of the plots connecting to Mount Oak. Now, why do you think they would prefer Dew Drive, right, when they have 2 options that they can, yes, they can reduce those 2 lots? It's obvious because they want to make the most amount of money by getting the biggest size lots based on the regulations that you have to have 1-acre properties. So essentially, they want us to pay for their loss that they're going to get. So they want to use Dew Drive so that they can maximize the revenue that they're going to get out of selling these lots. And to me, that's insane. Doing that on our backs, right? On our property. Not to mention that it's not very clear on whether Dew Drive, that connection continuing into that new property, whether it's going to be part of the city or Prince George's County. It's not very clear. Does that mean the city is going to take on the additional cost to maintain that road, even though it's not in the city? And how is that going to work between the city and the county? So to me, for all those reasons, I strongly recommend that you reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And the next speaker, and it looks like it's maybe Karen Raphael. Thank you for coming in this evening.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Mayor. Hi, council members. Thank you. Hi, everyone here, neighbors. I just want to make sure that I'm registering my request for you to deny this request. And I have 3 more points, apart from what has been spoken. Actually, most of them have been spoken, but I just want to make sure I'm repeating them. First of all is the deforestation effect that will mess up our air quality because they're going to cut all those trees, which are right behind people's house. I was there driving even today. Take a look at it. I'm sure this people who are living in Dew Drive and also all of us who are living in Woodmore Estate, we bought the property because of the curb appeal as well. So if I'm buying the property, which is God knows how much money they paid at that particular time, and then I said, okay, it's on the cul-de-sac, I get the trees, back to the trees, and this is the reason why I'm buying this property. And all of a sudden, there was that was a reserved area, there's no way you're cutting those trees. And then all of a sudden now it's a surprise, we're cutting the trees behind your house, which we said we were not gonna cut. So that tells me that there's a lot of, things which needs to be considered here, that we need to stick with what we say. Unless there is something which is emergency, which needs those trees to be cut, that is different. But just to give money to the so the development can be able to be done, so people can be able to get money out of
our expense, that is not something which should be allowed. And another thing which I just want to put in the record, there's a lot of, how can I put it? Not true sentences, or should I say lies, which have been presented left and right? At the beginning, it's 5,000. Now, all of a sudden, it's 117 square foot. And then every time you turn around, there is always something which is very fishy to the point where the trust is not there. I mean, I just want to put in the record, I don't trust what they do. I don't trust what they say, and I'll never trust it because let the record show that there was a lot of lies, and there have been continuously lies. So to me, once you lie once, I'm sorry, but the trust is gone. So I don't trust what they're saying. I don't trust whatever they plan, they come up. So they just need to leave our neighborhood alone. They just need to connect to the Mount Oak if they deal with PG County. But there's a lot of issues which now we have to consider on the traffic on that side. But for this hearing, I'm requesting the city of Bowie to refuse to connect on our neighborhood, please, because of all the reasons which have been expressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Our next speaker is, looks like it's Saidu Jabi, perhaps? Oh, wonderful. Thank you for coming in this evening, sir.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I lived in Dewdrive since 2010. I built that house, and my house is the last house by the farm. And they had a retaining wall to elevate my house so the water cannot come in. When the farm was there, we had a flood because the water that's coming from the farm cannot go through the retaining wall and had to go to my basement, and has too, because I went there to help out. So I want you guys to put yourself in our situation. We've invested a lot. We pay high property taxes in Bowie. Looking at the budget, it says that 75% of the revenue of Bowie comes from what? The property taxes. How do you get the property taxes? By the valuation of your property. So if the city is going to allow the property to go down, then I don't think you care about the people of the city. All of you have families. Will you allow your homes to be a parking lot? Will you allow your home to be invaded by over 200 cars when you have a family, when you have to sleep? They have roads in Church Road. They can move from Church Road and enter to the church. I think the church doesn't care about the people of the city. If you're a house of God, the people should be part of your plan, not just imposing your will upon the people. I don't think the city should tolerate this. How can we live on a Sunday when you have about 5 houses? What's the length of Dew Drive? What's the length from Dew Drive to Mount Oak? Imagine if you can accommodate that traffic. Even when my neighbor have stuff going on, it will be difficult for us to go through. So I'm asking you guys to reject this project, let them use Church Road, Mount Oak to go to their church, and let them leave our city, our property alone. We've paid a lot, we've been there longer, we don't have nowhere to go, we don't want to lose everything. Thank you. I wish my plea will be given due consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have another speaker. It looks like it's George Oyegoka, or Oyegoki, perhaps, 14302 Driftwood, and I apologize, I have a tough time with handwriting. Oh, George. Yeah, all right. George, you got to work on this.
I know. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. For the record, my name is George Egoke. I serve as president of Woodmore Estates, HOA. And you have heard from our residents, you've heard from people outside of Woodmore Estates. I understand there are 10 records that were submitted, all opposing the street connection. I am not going to repeat a lot of things that have been said, but I do need to stress the lack of transparency and candor from this applicant and their representatives. There were over 100 megabytes of documents that were submitted to Park and Planning. The information that was shared with you just before now, none of it is in there. There were no alternate roadways to Mount Oak Road. There was nothing about site distance issues. I would actually prefer to you that if the county had issues, Marguerite Timbers, the preserves at Woodmore, would not have been built because it's right opposite them. And it has its own access to Mount Oak Road. I also tell you that as we speak, the residential portion of this lot is served by private roadway, Mount Oak Lane. Park and Planning regulation calls for incorporating existing roadways, trails, private roadways into a plan. This applicant ignored that, did not even consider that, just wanted to connect to Dew Drive and connect to the city. This is the second time this applicant has been before you by force. The last time was Monday, February 4, 2019, when the county forced the applicant to come to the city. We had a city council meeting right here, a public meeting, because the water category changed. I have a copy of the notice from the city of Bowie right here, dated January 18, 2019. On here, it talks about a proposed 25,000 square foot building. And I'm sure you've heard that from several speakers. We are now at over 117,000. We're not here to debate the size of the building. The site plan has been approved by Park and Planning. All we're here to discuss is the proposed street connection or extension to Dew Drive. The fact that the applicant has refused to incorporate Mount Oak Lane into the design and is now sharing site distance issues just speaks to the lack of regard for the county, or for the city, sorry. Because they would have been here, they would have consulted with the city. There's an agreement between the city and the county that when a property abuts the city, you come to the city, even just to inform the city of the plan. That wasn't done. It wasn't until Park and Planning considered this, removed this portion as an out parcel until the applicant consults with the city. That's why we're having this. There is no regard for the city. There is no regard for Woodmore Estates or its residents. There is no concern. The idea that the county will not approve a roadway that's currently being used as we speak is just laughable. But again, it speaks to the lack of transparency and candor. We've been told that when the new subdivision is built, there will be a woodland area that would separate it from the church. Again, that is not true because they are buying over 2 acres of credit because the plan that was approved by the county, according to them, I'm going to read. The applicant is unable to provide all of the woodland conservation requirement on site and proposes that the remainder be satisfied by securing 2.24 acres of credit in an off-site mitigation bank. Woodmore Estates and the city of Bowie can eat cake. I say to you that, and I've shared this with a few folks, that fences make good neighbors. There's a current wooded fence line that serves as the city boundary. It also serves as the boundary for Woodmore Estates and this property. I say we maintain that wooded fence line at the end of Dew Drive and just let them deal with the county. If they want access to Mount Oak, they can either improve Mount Oak Lane that's existing or put a new roadway there. If they need to make improvements to Mount Oak to address the site distance issues, they can certainly deal with that with the county. The city would not be involved, Woodmore Estates would not be involved. You're all aware that the county has been proposing updates to Mount Oak for over 20 years now. I've been in Bowie over 20 years. None of it has been appropriated, none of it has been funded. The idea that the only mitigation afforded Woodmore Estates is that once these subdivisions have been built, another study will be done. It's laughable. It's basically, we're gonna build it, and then we're gonna have the city and you deal with it. There are no plans. I asked today, the city of Bowie funds the street lights on Dew Drive. Who's gonna fund the street lights after that point? They're gonna tap into that. You know, the city of Bowie is gonna plow the roadway. You're not gonna create snowbanks at the end of it, or you're gonna face litigation.
Thank you.
So I strongly oppose extending or connecting to Dew Drive. The community is strongly against this. Our Woodmore Estate is strongly against this. We see no upside for the city. We see no upside for Woodmore Estates. Destroying that woodland area is going to complicate the flooding that we have seen on Dew Drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then our last speaker is Michael Bridges.
You missed one.
Oh, whom have I missed? Okay, very good. We'll come back. Okay, fair enough. That's right. I apologize.
Well, that's all right. I remember. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Truesdale.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, I'm not here to really repeat all the technicalities and all the technical reasons why I oppose this, and I strongly oppose it. I am a 20-year resident of Woodmore Estates, one of the first houses that was built there. I'll tell you why I did that, or we did, my family and my neighbors. We had a plan. Everybody that bought a home there, that was a plan. And we knew exactly what we were getting, how many homes, where the streets were, where the wooded fence lines were, and all that. And I believe strongly, as you've heard tonight, that a lot of people, all of our neighbors, most of our neighbors, the reason that they saved and scrimped and waited until a lot was available is because of that character of the neighborhood. It's predictable. You know what you have, you know, and there's no unplanned anything going on until now. Going back to George's comment, I was here in 2019, and when this council voted against the development of the church, we were overridden by the council. There have been lawsuits. We need to take a stand. I mean, this is where we really take a stand. This is your city. You are our representatives. Regardless of what the county says, they cannot cross that boundary, and they cannot force you to connect to a county road. So please, protect us, protect your city, protect the revenue for the city, because one thing that I can almost guarantee
is that once you destroy the character of a neighborhood, you cannot continue to count on increasing property values from there. And moreover, you run the risk of this body getting a reputation for not protecting its citizens. You need to protect us from this nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, my apologies. And thank you for speaking this evening. And now we'll move on to Michael Bridges. And thank you, sir. Thanks. I'll have to extend my sympathies.
Hi, my name is Michael Bridges. I'm representing concerned citizens of Prince George's County, District 4 and surrounding areas. I'm the vice president. I just wanted to echo my support of the residents of Woodmore Estates in George. We find ourselves aligned with their position. I wanted to say, I live in Woodmore Highlands, which is just up the road on Church Road, so very familiar with the area. I wanted to say that we understand that the city does not have land use authority. We understand that. We also understand that you don't have the authority to approve preliminary plans of subdivision that may actually be inadequate from a traffic perspective. We feel that's actually what has been done. But you do have the absolute right and the absolute authority to refuse connections and street extensions to a preliminary plan of subdivision that you and/or your residents deem flawed or inadequate, which we actually find this preliminary plan of subdivision to be inadequate from a traffic perspective. I'm a numbers guy, so when I looked at the traffic study, and I've read, part of that 150 megabyte data dump, there's actually 3 steps to that traffic study, and they failed all 3. When I was engaged in a similar sort of review of a traffic study for Freeway Airport, they failed. I had this discussion with the traffic consultant. They failed 2 of the 3 steps, but on the 3rd, they came very close. And when I pointed it out, his response was, "We passed." It doesn't matter how close you come. So in this instance, they actually failed all 3 steps. Yet for some reason, the planning department allowed them to pass with some contingency. We feel that's a flawed approach. The residents don't have the ability to engage with the planning department, the subdivision review committee, where all of these decisions are made about like what's included in the traffic study, what is a suitable mitigation. We're left out of that until the very end. And even then, it's almost like we have no recourse. So you're pretty much our last line of defense, and we're hoping that you basically draw the line and refuse to be pushed into supporting a flawed plan by agreeing to connect their streets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming in. I think that covers everybody. And Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. At this time, are there any other questions or anything before I close the public hearing? At this time, I'll deem the public hearing closed. And any comments, questions, or motions from the council?
Yes, I'd like to, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to ask staff a quick question here. Ashley, you mentioned earlier, can you repeat your initial introduction on this? The question at hand is our willingness to accept a parcel, that road connection through to our existing street, correct?
Sorry, yes.
All right. And any other issues that are out there? I don't believe we have anything else that's, okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Truesdale, apparently, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
so.
Go ahead, Councilman. Yeah.
I was kind of out of line earlier, but does any questions? Well, listen, I just want to finish because I spoke earlier and I wanted to kind of have my colleagues if they had any concerns or anything that they wanted to say, but I stand firmly behind the community. A well-formed, informed, and community is a strong and powerful community. There's not a lot of things that I need to say in terms of, I'm definitely 100% behind, the community and not having Dewdrop be connected to any streets outside the city limits. We don't have, unfortunately, land use authority. That's one of the things that, puts us in these situations, but we do have the authority to say yay or nay on this motion tonight. And so I'm prepared to make a motion at any time. So if my colleagues don't have anything to say, I oppose. I make a motion, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I would like to make a motion to oppose.
Well, let's see if there are any other questions.
I mean, y'all acting like.
I just wanted, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will just say that I live right off the Church Road corridor as well. And I understand the concerns, particularly when you move into a new development and it is not developed to be landlocked, where the developer allows it to be open so that people can drive through your community. And unless you have somebody that's very concerned about community, that usually doesn't happen. So I'm very concerned about that. And I support, I've heard everything everyone said. One thing that we do have to keep in mind, and I agree 100% with keeping the parcel landlocked. But one thing we have to understand, even if we had zoning authority here in the city of Bowie, we still live in a capitalistic society where people have the freedom to purchase lots and land as long as it's zoned appropriately. And that's what we're up against. And so we don't have control over those kinds of things. But the things that we do have control over, because we live in this community just as well as you all live in this community, the things that we have control over, we will support our residents with. So I just wanted to make that, that comment, and I'm prepared for the vote.
Any other questions?
If there are no
Mr. Mayor, we have one more question here. Councilman Brady?
I can ask more than one question, right?
One more question or series of questions, sir? And maybe we'll even allow a comment.
Just to start off, I want to thank everyone for coming out and speaking on this issue. And I find it very frustrating that we are in the 11th hour. You talk about the nuclear clock, we're like 2 minutes away from midnight. And we're just now talking about this. This should have been done long ago. And I know when I was on the council previously, we typically had these kinds of discussions well in advance so we could work things out and come to an understanding. But I want to thank you all for coming out, and I've heard your message, but I do have some questions to ask staff and the applicant before I stop my questions. Just to make sure, we are not here to discuss the church. It is only the 8 parcels, the residential parcels that we're talking about.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And with the applicant, if I could ask you a question. You have a lot layout where you show lots 1 and 8 abutting the existing Woodmore Estates community, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there any buffering between those 2 lots and the existing lots, or does their rear yard go up to the rear yards or side yards of the residents that exist?
The side yards would go up to the residents that exist. That's the Dew Drive extension. There is a buffer. There's going to be forestation between the 8 lots and the 20 acres where the church is going to be built. The 8 lots has no connection to the church whatsoever.
Okay.
It's only the 8 residential lots.
And right now, I went out today, I measured the road, it's 29 feet wide. I measured the end of the asphalt to the tree line is 28 feet. And there's what I would consider, especially as a resident, a significant tree line there. And you're proposing to take all of that down in order to make it a lot for the 1 and 8, correct?
Correct. We're going to take that down, part of the preliminary plan of subdivision application for the entire 30 acres. There's only 3 acres of forestation on the entire 30 acres now.
Right.
The preliminary plan of subdivision, the applicant's adding an additional 4 acres on site.
Right.
Mr. George is correct, who is a former church member at Redeemed Church, is correct. We're putting another 2 acres
Elsewhere.
Elsewhere, yes. But
Right.
the forestation on the property is increasing by 51%. And that's included in the PG Park and Planning staff's 36-page planning report.
Right. But your proposal will basically butt those 2 properties, 1 and 8, up next to the existing homes.
Correct.
So, which is unfortunate because that buffer, if we were to move forward, would be valuable. And let me ask you a flip on this question. If you end up reversing it, because you had an alternate layout where you fronted on
Mount Oak.
Mount Oak, thank you, you would still have those 2 properties going up to the property line, correct?
Correct.
If you flip it over. Either way, you're going to be building all the way up the property line.
Correct. Either way, yes, the property is adjacent to the city. Correct.
Okay. And in their approval, they are requiring a sidewalk around on the 8 properties, correct? All the way around on Dew Drive.
That's if, yes, that's if there.
If it's connected, if
This
it's
body,
extended.
correct.
Well,
That's
no,
something that we didn't object to because Dew Drive already doesn't have the sidewalks, but the county said if.
This isn't directed at the applicant, so hold on. It just seems inconsistent that the planning board, they really want to strive to kind of unify, to mesh what they're proposing with the existing community, but then they're having it stick out like a sore thumb because there are no sidewalks in Woodmore Estate. So it's
Brought that issue
strange.
up with the-
To me,
brought that issue up with the
the
county.
planning board didn't make a connection there.
The county did make a connection because I asked them the same question you're asking, and their response was because the county requires bike paths along Mount Oak Road, and where the part of this application we're required to put in bike paths, it's going to allow the residents of Woodmore Estates to come through the Dew Drive extension through the 8 lots to Mount Oak Road to the bike, to the bike shared path.
Right, and then it looks like we're proposing a hiker-biker trail between properties L4 and L5 that would connect Dew Drive cul-de-sac to the church parking lot.
No,
Well, to the
the church is not connected one way whatsoever to these 8 residential lots.
okay. I had a problem with that. And in reading their decision, they made several references to the church. They would direct the access to the church to Dew Drive if it weren't for the 6 specimen trees. Another part of the report, they said they would have the church access through Dew Drive if it weren't for the topography and the grade. And that's what's in the report I read last night.
Yeah, that's incorrect. Your reading of it's incorrect. Respectfully, that's the other parcel. That's the other parcel. The language is not referring to the 8 residential lots.
No. In their approval, when they're talking about the siting and access for the church, there are comments about not being able to direct access for the church to Dew Drive. That's what I read. That's what it said. But it just seemed bizarre. They seem totally disconnected.
Totally separate.
And I'm one that hopes that we could come up to a compromise that benefits everyone. But it doesn't seem that we have an opportunity here. And I just have to caution the residents is if we don't do it with some negotiation, when they flip the access to Mount Oak, we're not going to have much of any say. So, and
Our
I will
position
close
is
with
that
this.
it's not going to be connected to Mount Oak because of the site distance issues.
I will close with this. It's in the report, under paragraph 7, referring to referral to municipalities, it states, in the event that such an agreement is deemed infeasible or unacceptable by the city council, the residential portion of the development, lots 1 through 8 and parcel A, shall be platted as an out parcel. They continue in saying, in this event, the applicant will need to file a separate preliminary plan of subdivision in the future to subdivide the parcel with a different lot layout showing the residential lots accessed via Mount Oak Road instead of Dew Drive. So in their decision, if we don't approve, you're going to have to access from Mount Oak Drive.
It'll sit there as an out parcel because we can't connect to Mount Oak. The church is being constructed, but those 10 acres will sit as an out parcel. It's zoned RE. We expect $1 million. We expect that those lots are valued at $1 million, single-family homes.
Right.
It'll just be an R parcel.
So I think they've basically put a nail in the coffin. If we say no, then you're going to have to access it from Mount Oak. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions here? Seeing none, back to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? It is up to council if we should decide to take any action, if at this time. So I will open the floor to any motions.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to oppose PP 74234041.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. I will call for the vote. Any discussion first?
Do we, Mr. Mayor, quick question. Do we need to clarify that we're rejecting the request for access? To access to Drew Drive. So let's
Okay,
add, if I'm good with that, if you add that in.
The motion should make sure it's very clear on what we're doing. So would you restate your motion for us, please?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to oppose the access to Dew Drive in PPS 4-23041.
Second.
I have not heard a second.
There's been a second. Mr. Brady seconded earlier.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, blocking the, please respond with a yay.
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 All opposed to the blocking, a nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you all so much. Wilder, would you give just for everyone, for the record, what the tally was?
It was unanimous, Mayor.
I thought that. I just wanted her to be able to say that. That was anyway. So it was a unanimous vote. All right. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to the next item. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming in this evening.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to recuse myself from this discussion. This is Wanda.
Okay. Understood, council member. All right, so now, we will now be discussing the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce grant.
thank you for coming in, but if you could take your conversations outside, we do have to continue our meeting, so we appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
We lost a quorum.
So at this time,
Oh, yeah,
No, we still have a quorum.
sorry. Can't see her.
Yeah, that's quite all right.
all right, we will now move on to item D, the Bowie Chamber of Commerce grant proposal. And this is going to be eligible for action. So I will turn it over to staff for the city, can bring up the Bowie Chamber of Commerce proposal.
Is the representative present from, go upstairs? Well, you should go up to the mic and make your pitch. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, good evening. Council members.
Okay. I was a little worried there was no one there.
Yeah, we lost our crowd, unfortunately, but no worries. Council members, thank you very much for allowing us to speak this evening. My name is Michael White, and I am honored to represent both St. John Properties as well as the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, in which I serve currently as the Vice President. St. John Properties, specifically my portfolio, includes several very important developments in the state of Maryland. That includes our property Beaver Road in Hyattsville, Laurel Business Center, Lexington Exchange located in California, Maryland, and our two newest developments currently up and running, Berry Point in Waldorf, as well as Westwood Commerce Park in Salisbury. I am, however, particularly very proud of the work we've been able to accomplish locally at Melford Town Center, located right here in Bowie. Melford is a testament to long-term investment as well as collaboration. 15 years ago, we couldn't have imagined the results we're seeing today. Melford has not only become an economic hub for the region, with anchor tenants such as Courtyard by Marriott, Encompass Health, but also brand new inline tenants such as the Lab 301, which is an indoor golf simulator facility with membership access. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, our very own delegate, Kim Taylor, actually hosted a golf event for her golf group at the Lab 301's facility. Just a perfect example of how Melford continues to support our community. The Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce is dedicated to strengthening our local businesses, community, and fostering opportunities like those we've seen at Melford over the years. We're focused on recruiting, supporting, and retaining businesses while also building a strong database of small, minority, and women-owned businesses. Tonight, I'm pleased to segue to Ms. Patricia Watson, our Associate Director and CEO of 2 Advocate, a visionary leader and a serial entrepreneur. Trish is also the co-founder of the national organization Black Girls Vote. She will now share her vision for the chamber moving forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Patricia Watson, but please feel free to call me Trish. It is a pleasure and honor to be here representing the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce. Our firm, Carrington & Associates LLC, began managing the day-to-day operations of the Chamber as of September the 1st of 2024. As you may know, the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce has a proud legacy with the late Senator Douglas J.J. Peters once serving as its president. Our region is home to over 5,000 small and independent businesses, the backbone of our economy. Prince George's County also leads the state in veteran-owned businesses, many of which are critical to our national security.
With the city's support, the Chamber will play a pivotal role in growing and sustaining our local business community. Our plans include rebuilding the GBCC brand, creating an online business directory in partnership with the city, launching a targeted marketing campaign to spotlight Bowie businesses, and revitalizing network events. We also hope to bring back some favorite traditions like the GBCC Golf Tournament championed by former Mayor Fred Robinson. In fact, we're looking for volunteers to serve on the golf committee, and Councilmember at Large Brady, I hear you may be a great fit for this. As many as you may.
Go back 15 seconds.
We are revitalizing, bringing back our golf tournament.
Oh, yeah.
As many as you may know, the Moore-Miller administration is navigating a nearly $3 billion budget deficit. Their message is clear. To climb out of this structured deficit, Maryland must recruit, retain, and support its businesses. With leaders like Comptroller Brooke Learman, State Treasurer Derek Davis, Attorney General Anthony Brown, and Senator Angela Alsobrooks hailing from our region, we have an unprecedented opportunity to ensure Bowie's voice is heard at every level of government. With the city's assistance, we can rebuild the GBCC into the premier entity it once was, strengthening our business communities and putting the chamber back on the path of self-sufficiency. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter.
Mayor, you're on mute.
Yes, as I was saying. I think at this time what I'd like to do is give everyone an opportunity to comment on this at this time. So what I will do is I will start with our at-large member. Well, let's start with our Mayor Pro Tem, then our at-large member, and then districts 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my only question is, I'm not quite sure I understand what the ask is.
The ask and request was for the grant that would be up and favorable to the chamber in order to continue our efforts and help continue to help businesses thrive and mold in our community.
I think with the council.
And how much is the?
How much? Yeah, the ask is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just.
Mayor.
Do we have an amount that we're looking for? Do we have anything that's specific to the? I'm sorry. One moment,
Let me help
Mr.
out.
City Manager.
I'll help out, Mr. Mayor. The executive summary from the grant proposal that we received, the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce respectfully requests $25,000 grant from the City of Bowie to support 2 initiatives, the creation of a local veteran-owned business directory and the implementation of a Shop Local Bowie marketing campaign. These initiatives aim to enhance the visibility on local businesses, encourage community members to shop locally, and offer a strong local, foster a strong local economy. That's what was presented to us. Am I right? Okay.
Thank you, City Manager, because the other question to that was, were they broken out in any amount for either program or just for the whole program of the 2?
The grant amount that is requested was for $25,000.
For both programs, but it wasn't subdivided between the 2?
No, sir.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, again, my apologies. Please go right ahead.
Thank you. The total cost for these programs, is the rest of the chamber's members participating and supporting this effort?
Yes, sir. We put it up to a vote with our members and our general member board, and everyone was in favor.
I'm sorry, I should have been more specific. Are they contributing? It's fine for them to support in terms of, yes, it's a great idea. Are they supporting with any money?
Yes, sir.
And what's that look like?
It will be a sliding scale depending. We have different levels of membership depending on the number of employees and the type of business they have. So we have nonprofit organizations as well as governmental organizations. So it'll be a sliding scale depending on.
But do we know how much? So you're asking us for $25,000. Is anybody else providing funding for this particular project other than the city?
You mean, do we have a set amount?
For
already set
example, is the rest of the membership providing $25,000 and the total is going to be 50 for the expense for these two programs, or is it just 25,000? You know, that the chamber as a total has come and just asked us, hey, you guys fund it, and we'll take the gravy, but we're not gonna put any flour into the sauce, right? Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Darrell Carrington. I serve as the executive director for the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, and I thought I might be able to offer some comments to help answer that question for you. Aside from membership dues and the like, we've also partnered with the Prince George's County Department of Veterans Affairs, and they will be supporting us in this effort. I'm offering a lot of in-kind resources and the like, but we are structuring this so that it's going to be working in cooperation with that agency, and hopefully in next year's budget, although that's going to be very tight, as we all know, perhaps there will be some supports from our county council person with respect to the work we'll be doing in cooperation with the Office of the County Executive.
So what's the total cost for this effort going to be?
Well, the estimated cost at this point is probably double what the ask is from the council. We're looking at, our revenues over the course of the year, and this augmenting what we would like to be able to do to make sure that we have the administrative support that we need to put these things together.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Council Member at Large, Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, and thank you for this. And I may have to go back, and years ago when I was in council previously, I was actually a paid associate member. So maybe I'll have to go back and do that and encourage my colleagues to do that too. So a few questions. It would have been nice if there'd been a little more detail. It seems like we have a skeleton in your request, but not a lot of flesh on the bones, if you will. So it's kind of, you're asking for a lot of money and just have too little creation of a local and veteran-owned business directory and an implementation shop local Bowie. I mean, they sound great, but I'm wondering more what they are. You mentioned a partnership with the Veterans Department, or I forgot who Mr. Carrington referenced. Are you looking to partner with the city outside of just this grant?
Thank you very much for that question, Councilmember Brady. Several things here. So we are going to be working very closely with the city's economic development group. We already have a relationship with Mr. John Henry King, and we hope to strengthen that. Also, we have actually, as of this afternoon, we've had some substantial conversations with the women's, make sure I get this right, the Maryland Women's Business Center,
right,
which is co-located with Bowie BIC, which we've also been working closely with.
Right.
And so we've also we're also going to be reaching out, and we've also had conversations with Mark Lawrence, who is a vendor that's doing your 5-year implementation plan for Old Town Bowie. And so we're all going to work together cooperatively, in the benefit of the residents and businesses for this community to expand this project.
Right.
We actually need some administrative operational capacity to move
this forward. And so the Prince George's County Federal Credit Union is working closely and developed 4 cohorts with the Maryland Women's Business Center, working with the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce to create a cohort here for at least 15 businesses, where the Shop Local is actually a program in which they purchase a large retail space, and then they allow small startups, retail base, to be able to rent space at below market rates. And then after 6 months, they will graduate out of the program, thereby creating new space for a new group of entrepreneurs. So that's what this program is, but it does require a substantial amount of coordination with, with the Maryland Women's Business Center, and the other groups that I mentioned that would be, members, including the local CDC, which is the Huntington City Community Development Corporation. So everyone is going to be singing from the same sheet of music with respect to this, and a collaborative approach, bringing together the city formally, and then all of these other nonprofits and vendor groups that are out there.
Right. You twice now have mentioned covering administrative costs. How much do you think that will be? Are we talking 5%, 10% of the 25,000 grant would be administrative costs, which doesn't do anything for the 2 projected or proposed items?
Well, yes, this is an administrative operational cost proposal. All of the work is going to be done in-house by the chamber, its staff, and its members.
Okay. Both of these sound like they would be very beneficial, very useful, but quite often these kinds of things, and we've seen them in the city, and I've seen them with where I used to work in the federal government, have all these grand plans. You put them in a book, you put them on the shelf, and then they start collecting dust. Can we expect that this would be an annual requested grant to continue it, or is there a way that we could possibly set it up and structure it in such a way that, in partnership between the chamber and city staff, that we can maintain this project going on beyond the 12 months?
Thank you again. Very good question. And our intention is for this to be a one-time grant for this purpose, to get it off the ground and get it started. And then this is going to be ongoing. Obviously, we're going to have new businesses that are going to come into our community. We're hoping every day we're making an announcement about a new business that wants to situate here in the Greater Bowie region. So working with Mr. Henry King's group, we will make sure that we're aware of, and also working with the county itself, when people register businesses and the like under certain zip codes, we would like to be notified so that we can reach out to those businesses, let them know the supports that we have for them in the Greater Bowie region. So this is an ongoing project that's going to have a life of itself and have its own, its own life cycle that will go well beyond this 12 months. This is just to get it off the ground and make sure that we have a comprehensive database that's searchable. And we'll have matrix and deliverables as well, because obviously the ultimate deliverable is having the database that's usable for residents, businesses, and the like.
Exactly. And I would expect that once it's Herculean effort to establish it, but after that, it's not that difficult to maintain, update, and modify as changes occur. Over the course of the grant, would you be comfortable with quarterly reports to the city on what you've done, or a monthly report? I'd prefer monthly, but I understand that's also
we would prefer quarterly, but that would not be a problem at all. I mean, if we had to do monthly, we would, but we would prefer a quarterly report, so we have something meaningful to actually report back.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brudis. You're on the committee, sir.
Anybody else? Clinton?
Mike.
Mr. Truesdale?
Thanks. I'll let my colleague.
Do this in order.
Politicians who don't want to talk. What's going on tonight?
I don't know.
Let's go to one.
All right, we'll go with Mr. Stev, and then we'll follow up with Mr. Truesdale.
Team, thanks for coming by tonight. I appreciate what you do. Obviously, we've all been talking about economic development for a while, so we always appreciate hearing ideas about how we can help. I just want to understand really particularly, talk to me about these deliverables and why these particular deliverables for this grant.
Well, we've been approached to work with the Shop Local program and looking at our current capacity and the like and where we were at, we realized we needed to reach out for some help. So the Shop Local initiative is something that we believe, I mean, obviously our board supports it. We believe that this will be a great shot in the arm for the small business community, especially minority and veteran-owned businesses. And then, of course, the directory is something that we absolutely positively have as an, the chamber has to create that thing. And to Councilmember Brady's point about having things that sit on a shelf and collect dust, going through the historical records of the chamber and seeing boxes from 20 years ago even, and all of those directories that they had printed that, they're almost out of date once they finally get printed. So we will have an online database directory where we also hopefully will be able to be entrepreneurial with it and be able to sell space, and people want to have a certain ad up or something like that, or they have a special event coming up that they want us to really emphasize or blast on it. That is what we're looking at. And, of course, in the day and age that we're in now, the electronic world that we're in, everything should be constantly updated. Nothing's going to be still. Nothing's going to be printed anymore. Everything is going to be online. And, we do have an environmental slant as well. So we do want to save our environment to the best of our ability and going paperless whenever possible.
Okay, so you'll have a database. For whom is the database? What's the purpose of the database?
The database is going to be for residents, businesses, government, local officials, and the like to be able to research and see what businesses we have. There will be certain highlights so that you will know which businesses are veteran or women or minority-owned businesses in the directory. And that's something that I know that we would like to make sure that we're making a focus on, and we've made a push as a community to improve our diversity. So to that end, that's the reason the creation. That's also in the conversations with Dr. Dula, who's the executive director over at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and talking about it. He was also the president of the Prince George's Chamber of Commerce. So he's a business-minded professional as well. And so these conversations with people who advocate business, support business, and the like, and of course support our veterans. And Prince George's County, to those who don't know, is home to more veterans than any other county in the state of Maryland. And Bowie being the largest jurisdiction, we are obviously home to some of the largest group of veteran-owned businesses. So we want to make sure that we're highlighting and featuring those things as well.
Are customers actually going to go look at a database somewhere when they shop?
I don't know.
I don't know a single customer who's checking a database before they shop, other than maybe Consumer Reports if they're buying an expensive product. So I'm just trying to understand,
But that's not the purpose of this database, Councilman SF. With all due respect, that wasn't something that we said that we were looking to market to. Again, this is more business to business and things of that nature, and we that's part of the charm, hopefully, and the allure of joining the chamber, being a part of these organizations, and paying attention to what the city is doing around economic development, and in the future, and also, as I said earlier, coordinating much more closely with Mr. Henry King and his staff in terms of joint events, joint ribbon cutting, and things of that nature.
Gotcha. So the database is more for the use of the chamber and the city, where we will have like a better, clearer idea of who all the businesses are in the city, and where they are, and their status as far as being veteran-owned, minority-owned, et cetera.
And yeah, not only that, but the organizations that are also members of the chamber. So, we're going to have, we have nonprofits and sometimes they may need volunteers so this is going to be a real community resource in that regard, not for someone like I need a painter. And so I'm going to go to Emily's list and, or whichever the list is, or Angie's list, where they, they actually let you know who's good, who's bad, and the rating systems and the like.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. This helps me understand. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, because we are running a little low on long on time. So at this point, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Now we can.
Yeah, I don't know. My computer's going in and out now. I would like to, at this point, if we can briefly go to 3 and 4, if you'd like to make some comments on this.
Okay. Thank you. Mr.
Councilman,
Mayor.
go ahead, Councilman Truesdale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just short question, the Chamber of Commerce, would it be available for people or businesses outside of the chambers, besides the partnership that you're working with? Because we're familiar with Maryland Women's Business Center. They came before us last year. We know their initiative, and it would be good to understand some of the partnerships that you have and what they're bringing to the table monetarily, and you know, inside. Is just a Chamber of Commerce thing besides the partnerships, or is it open to any small businesses that's in the city of Bowie?
Okay. Yes, I think it will be as well. In the age of social responsibility, a lot to Councilmember Estes' question as well, a lot of businesses and a lot of people are looking to see who has a community buy-in, who's a small business, who's a woman-owned business, who's a veteran-owned business before they make a purchase. So we will have it available to the public as well, so that before you make a purchase, before you do business with anyone, you can still see who is supporting your community, what community members are actually doing the work and putting that bread back out there to them.
So that's the database of
Yes.
the model.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Ndabamadu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'll make my comments brief. Can you talk to me about your KPIs and how you plan on measuring that to yield the outcome of retention or attracting new businesses to the city?
With also working with Mr. John Henry King's organization, with his department, we'll be able to track the measurements of the new businesses that are coming in and what businesses are what, and as well as us partnering with the veteran-owned businesses, the veteran-owned business societies, as well as the small business administrations as well.
Thanks for the answer, Mr. Mayor and colleagues. I'm not ready to take an action on this tonight. I think I need more concrete KPIs to understand what those key performance indicators were to determine success. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, we can just say thank you. Does anyone want to make a motion, or would you like to wait to hear more information? That's kind of a open-ended question. And so,
Mr. Mayor, I concur with Councilwoman Ndabamadu. I think our next best step is perhaps to turn to staff to work with the representatives from the Chamber of Commerce to put together a proposal that's a bit more detailed, that would include both the objective as well as some of the specifics of the action plan, and with some measurable deliverables. And I would also look for something that would reflect participation from other members of members of the chamber itself, and perhaps that might be manifested in a manner such as, our grant would be perhaps matching funding based on what others might contribute. So that there's, skin in the game for the rest of the organization, and it's not just a City of Bowie type effort. And I would look to my colleagues and say maybe turn to Mr. King to take that on. Mr. King, are you up for such a task?
well, before we get there, Council Mayor Pro Tem, let's just make sure, are we as a council good with that? Can I hear from you? Are all the council members good with us moving forward with them coming back with more information and that type thing?
Sure. Can I jump in real quick? So I'll just say,
yeah, real quick.
We put the Maryland Women's Business Association through the ringer for like 6 months when they were trying to get kind of a similar grant. And our big thing to them was just, we have so many different groups working on kind of similar things. We're just trying to figure out how we can synergize. And so maybe this, after more conversation, is the perfect idea. Maybe there's a different way we could enlist your support, for a similar dollar amount. And so I think it would be helpful, given the amount of stuff out there that we're doing, to maybe take a little more time and think about how we could plug this in the most synergistic way.
Okay, Councilman, and I think that's what I'm hearing from everyone. And so at this point, I think it would be okay if we, as a general consensus, would ask John Henry King to put something together to work with them, to come back with something where we can see the information like Councilwoman Endabamagu and others asked for, where we can see those key performance indicators and that kind of thing. So I do want to say thank you for coming before the council tonight. And city manager, is that an action you can take on, that you will take on? But
Well,
John,
I think I understand what you're asking us to do is to work with them to get a more detailed and action and oriented application, whereas you can read it and understand specifically what the money's going to be spent on and what the end results will be and with the quarterly reporting. We can work with them as they draft their documents and sure thing.
Mr. Mayor, could I jump in real quick?
Council, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step over you, but city manager, would you also make sure that I think several were asking to see whom else will be funding as well? To make sure, I think as one of the council members said, that who else will have skin in the game for this project to be successful besides just the city?
I got that in my notes, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thank you. I'm sorry, Councilman Esteve, I didn't mean to speak over you. Please go right ahead.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, we'll have to hold for a quick second here. We have someone who's taken a little ill, so let's take a momentary break.
While they deal with that, to staff and the mayor's point, I was just going to say real quickly, could we also ask Mr. John Henry King to come back, also just with a brief synopsis of the existing grants we have out there? Because again, that'll kind of help us figure out like, all right, this is what we're doing, this is what we need to do, and figure out how we can plug that in. Does that make sense? If none of my colleagues object.
We can certainly do that, but I think this was, they were applying for the grants in the council's budget.
Correct.
That $100,000, right?
My point is that Mr. Henry King is simply aware of like other grants that we're working on right now, Maryland Women's Business Group, BIC, et cetera, and could just give us a quick appraisal of like where we are and help remind us what our needs still are, or our outstanding needs.
Hey, thank you. At this time, as we look like we're going through a medical issue there, I would like to propose to the council at this time that the last two items on the list, that if we can remove those with Councilwoman Endabamagu's agreement, that we can move them to the next council meeting, if everyone is in agreement with that.
Mr. Mayor, we're good here in terms of the situation, so we are fully operable.
Okay, so you'd rather just move through the last two as opposed to waiting until the next meeting?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to move my agenda item to the next meeting.
Okay. You guys fine with that? Yeah. Clinton, you good with that? All right. Mr. Mayor, I think we can do, everyone here is fine with that.
All right, why don't you
I'm sorry,
make
one
a
moment,
motion?
one moment. We got a comment here. Mr. Brady?
No, I don't expect either one of these items really take long or what have you, but we're after 11 o'clock, heading into midnight. Mm-hmm. And I think for kind of say transparency, doing this in the public, maybe we ought to roll it over to the next one to where it's in more reasonable time. Because all we have here, nobody in the audience to speak of. Not that I'm insulting anybody, but I think it'd be something that we could delay till the next meeting.
Fair enough. We're all good here, sir.
Councilwoman, we may need to do a motion at this time, correct? So let's just move it to the next meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we adjust the agenda for the last two items for the next regular city council meeting.
table.
Second.
A second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor of adjournment, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
All righty. Hey, thank you, everyone, and thank you for sitting through this and for the dialogue. And staff, thank you again. I know how cold it is out there. Please pass on to everyone how much we appreciate their service. Hey, everyone take care and have a great evening. Be safe.